I've made a bunch of tech videos about TF2 by now, and there's so many of them that the new ones rely on context from the older videos to understand what's actually happening. So I thought I'd assemble a TF2 tech mega video so that I can compile all of the tech videos into one place. It also allows me to go back and fix the parts where I missed things out or got things wrong. Some of these videos are relatively old by now, so there might be some mic quality and editing differences between the compiled videos. But without further ado, welcome to the TF2 Tech Bible. Have you ever wondered why crouching makes your rocket jumps go further in TF2? Have you ever wished that you could completely avoid fall damage?
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to learn a bunch of goofy, wacky tech that you can use to absolutely demolish random children in casual?
We're gonna giggle through that.
Well, if you wanted all that and more, then you've clearly come to the right place. Today, I wanted to try and demystify TF2's movement, show off some weird glitches and exploits you might not have heard of, and on top of all that, I wanted to try and explain how all of it works. If we're talking about TF2 movement, there's some super basic things to talk about that most people don't even really know exists. So let's quickly talk about rocket jumping. You probably all know what rocket jumping is. You jump, crouch, and you shoot at the floor roughly all at the same time, and you fly off into the sky. But have you ever wondered why you have to crouch when you rocket jump? It seems weird, right? In the older games that inspired TF2, like Quake for example, rocket jumping is as simple as jumping and shooting your feet. Why does TF2 have this extra little step? Well, the reason for this is actually surprisingly stupid. In TF2, your collision is controlled using your bounding box. This big, clumsy looking rectangle around your character is responsible for everything collision related in the game. When you walk into a wall, your bounding box collides with it. It's also responsible for the hit detection of explosives and projectiles. When you crouch, it gets smaller. When you jump, it lifts off the ground. You get the deal. But there's a hidden property of the bounding box that goes mostly unnoticed and unmentioned by most people. The bounding box also controls the weight of your character. How heavy a character is controlled solely by your character's bounding box. And since the bounding box is the same size for every character, this means that the mass of each character is exactly the same. But the thing about this mass property of the bounding box is that it's not based off of any numbers or behind the scenes stats or anything. All the game does to check the mass of a character is check the size of the bounding box. So when you crouch and your bounding box gets shorter, your character also literally gets lighter. Seriously, this is why you have to crouch when you rocket jump. Crouching makes you weigh less, so your rockets send you further. And this is also true for surfing enemy damage. Crouching and jumping when an enemy shoots at you will cause you to get pushed away much faster than if you just jumped. It's also the reason that that one Halloween spell that makes you small makes you take so much knockback. Your bounding box getting smaller literally makes you have less mass. But this isn't the only way that you can make your rocket jumps take you further. There's another method for doing this called a C-tap. C-tapping is a TF2 movement exploit that lets you get more height from any explosive jumping. To perform a C-tap, all you have to do is hold crouch for a short duration, then release it. Then whilst you're in the middle of your unducking animation, you press jump and fire a rocket below your feet. The timing is a little tight because you need to release the crouch button before becoming fully crouched, and you also need to fire the rocket to hit the floor basically the instant you leave the ground. Now this might seem like a random string of button presses, but if we take a look at the player's bounding box when they do a C-tap, you might get a clue on just how this works. Notice how C-tapping reduces your jump height by quite a lot. This is the secret of what a C-tap is actually doing to make you go further. You're literally closer to the ground, meaning you're closer to your rocket's explosion and you get sent further by its knockback. So why does C-tapping make you closer to the floor? Well, the answer is simple. It's sauce spaghetti. Whenever you try to uncrouch, the game does a check to make sure you're able to do so. It checks where your body is going to extend into to make sure that you're not gonna like clip into the roof or something. And most of the time, this all works perfectly. But for some reason, if you crouch, but then uncrouch before you ever fully became crouched, the game still does this little check to make sure you have room above you to stand up in. But if you jump in the middle of this uncrouching state, the game gets confused. The game game incorrectly assumes that you're trying to uncrouch whilst in the air, when in reality, crouching and uncrouching while in the air is supposed to be instantaneous. But because the game thinks you're uncrouching, it checks where your bounding box is going to extend to make sure you have room to uncrouch. When you're on the floor, it checks above you to make sure you can stand up, because that's where your bounding box moves when you uncrouch. But when you're in the air, uncrouching makes your legs stick out downwards. So that's where the game does this check. The game checks below you and finds the floor, and it concludes that you can't uncrouch right now. So it forces you to stay crouched just like it would if you were in an enclosed space. And being forced into a crouch state while in the air like this makes you very close to the floor. Much closer than could ever be possible by just jumping and crouching. And since you're much closer to the floor, your rockets send you much further than they would do otherwise. Ctapping is a pretty powerful tool. It lets you jump much higher than would be usually possible. It takes some practice, but once you're good at it, it's basically a no-brainer to use it wherever possible. And Ctapping is quite a well-known trick by now. People have known that Ctapping has existed for more than a decade now. So even if you can't do one, you've probably heard of it. But there's one more thing that Ctaps can do that, as far as I can tell, pretty much nobody has ever heard of. Because Ctapping has this magical property that literally makes you shorter. Okay, maybe not that much shorter, but it does make you shorter, trust me. Just take a look at this. There's this hole in the wall that I can't walk under, and the hole next to it can't be crouched under either. There's seemingly no way to fit through this gap. Unless, of course, I Ctap precisely 4 times in a row. After doing this, I can fit through both holes with ease, as if there was no issue in the first place. But now, if I jump normally just once and try to walk through again, I don't fit anymore. This might be the goofiest and most niche piece of trivia that I know about TF2, and I only learned about it like a few weeks ago. So how does this work? Well, the answer is obviously sauce spaghetti, but more specifically is that Ctapping doesn't make you shorter, it actually makes you slightly closer to the ground. You see, TF2 has a unit of measurement called a hammer unit, named after the hammer map editor that people have been using to make TF2 maps for the last 16 years. The player's bounding box is 82 hammer units tall. The maximum height you can rocket jump with a Ctap is 691 hammer units directly upwards, and the soldier's walk speed is 240 hammer units per second, because speed is also measured using this unit. And the reason I'm explaining this is because TF2's collision has some slightly janky things associated with it that most people don't know about. Every single object in the entire game that you can collide with secretly has a small little film over it that you collide with instead. Every time you walk up to a wall and press up against it, the game is constantly trying to keep you exactly 0.03125 hammer units away from that wall. The reason the game does this is because of old source games like Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 had some bugs where you could get stuck in walls when playing on an old computer, because old computers weren't very precise with calculating your coordinates or something like that. So the game had this little barrier on every wall to prevent you from actually getting stuck inside the actual wall. But in TF2, this bug doesn't happen anymore, but the small barrier between walls remains as a vestige of the old source games. But this barrier isn't limited to just walls. This also happens on the floor too. And for some really strange reason, every time you Ctap, you start gradually poking through that 0.3125 unit gap. And after 7 Ctaps in a row, you will be completely flush with the floor. And thus you are now 0.03125 units shorter than you normally would be. And this is what lets me fit through those holes from earlier. And jumping normally just once resets this and puts you back to your original height like nothing ever happened. Now, this small barrier can be broken on the floor by Ctapping, but it's even easier to break through on the wall. Step 1. Walk up to the wall and hold W. Step 2, do a little wiggle by spamming A and D a little bit, maybe even do a jump for good measure too. You're now past this very small third of a unit barrier. So now look at this hole in the floor. I can't fit through the hole normally, but if I do a little bit of a wiggle here and then randomly smash myself into this wall here, I can suddenly fit through the hole perfectly. Now this might seem like it's, you know, completely pointless, but it actually does have some practical uses in game. Most notably is is with something called a pixel walk. Sometimes on maps you get these pesky little invisible walls called clip brushes. They stop you from like jumping out of the map and stuff, and they're pretty good at doing that. But you also get these little sloped ones that push you off of small ledges that the map maker didn't want you to stand on. But if you jump into this ledge and do a little wiggle, pushing past that thin barrier between walls, you can actually stand on this ledge despite the mapper's best intentions of keeping you off of it. And there are lots of these on lots of maps. They don't have to be invisible slopes either. Sometimes real slopes do the trick as well. And the funniest part of this to me is that these ramps don't actually stick out of the wall enough to be stood on normally. The tip of the ramp is actually perfectly flush with the wall. But because of that 0.3125 barrier between you and every object, you can actually stand on the tip of this ramp anyway, because I'm not stood on the tip of the slope, but instead on the tip of that tiny unit barrier that is on top of that slope, which is incredibly ironic if you ask me. But we're actually not done talking about this barrier that walls have, because there's another incredibly niche tech that relies on it called a pixel surf. Pixel surfs are a little different to pixel walks. They occur on tiny little lines that meet like this. These are called brushes. When you make a map for TF2, you do it in the hammer editor, and you place down these blocks called brushes to construct the map with. Where two brushes meet, you get this little seam. On this line is where the pixel surf will occur. None of the brushes stick out, so there's not actually anything to stand on here. But if you jump at just the right height, you can begin hovering where these brushes meet. As long as you keep holding a directional key into the wall, you will stay hovering like this forever. And you can glide backwards and forwards along the line. It's pretty goofy, right? Now you might have noticed that some of my footage of pixel surfs came from Counter-Strike in a video that's about TF2. Well, the tech does work in both games, but the tech is much easier to pull off in Counter-Strike than it is in TF2. The reason why is actually pretty complicated, and a little bit boring too. Something to do with the way maps are compiled or something. But just trust me, because as simple as it might have looked, it is incredibly difficult to pull off, even in Counter-Strike, and it's incredibly rare to see because of this. After learning about this tech and going hunting for footage for it, I could only find 2 good clips of it happening in the wild. One of those clips, funnily enough, comes from a player called Warped, who at the time had no idea what a pixel surf was. So he uploaded this clip to his YouTube channel, and he appropriately named the mysterious tech as the warped bug. Yeah, real subtle, buddy, real subtle. But this elusive warped bug is an example of a pixel surf. These two brushes meet on this line, and he has gotten a perfect lineup to hover along that line indefinitely until he releases the W key. There's also this old clip from a player called Kato, where he fails some wall pogo section, so he shoots himself downwards and accidentally hits the perfect height for a pixel surf. To explain why this works, I first need to explain how TF2 and its servers calculate things. TF2 measures everything from hit detection to collisions to player actions, everything like that in what's called a tick. There are 66 ticks per second on a normal TF2 server. Inside of every tick, the game measures a bunch of stuff, like where you're moving, how fast you're going, whether you're touching anything, stuff like that. Where these two brushes meet on this line, the game is getting tricked into thinking that you're colliding with the top part of this bottom brush. The reason this is so rare is because it doesn't just happen whenever you fly past two brushes meeting. The only time it happens is when you are extremely close to where the brushes meet, the tick before you actually touch it. If you want the specifics, you have to be within 0.01875 and 0.03125 hammer units above this line, the tick before you actually pass it. And just for reference on how precise that is, a single hammer unit is approximately this big. So this is the reason you basically never ever see pixel surfs happening in the game. I've never had one happen to me, and I've only heard of it happening on a small number of occasions to other people. This might just be the rarest glitch in all of TF2. So rare that it's basically random. So if you were looking for the dream of hovering in the air in some funny spot on a pixel surf to kill noobs in casual, then sorry to burst your bubble, but it's probably not gonna happen. Or is it? If you did, hypothetically, want to hover in the sky above people to sneakily rain down hell on your enemies, then I think I might have you covered. I'm bombing across on the med.
We're prepping to leave lower.
Med drop.
Oh, we got left.
This is what's called a Wallbug, and I am a very, very big fan of Wallbugs.
Really deep. Deep
What
left.
the fuck is that?
I love me a Wallbug. You have no idea how many Wallbug clips I have. I could fill an entire hour-long video with just Wallbug clips.
I love getting on the HTP over you.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Now's his time.
It's gonna be fed.
Oh, fucking hell.
I love it.
It's nuclear.
So let me do the honor of teaching you how to perform a Wallbug. You find a wall that is Wallbug appropriate, we'll get to that part later, and you jump into it. Ideally high up the wall so that people have a harder time seeing you. As you jump into the wall, you hold W and spam A and D into it, similar to the pixel walk example from earlier. If you do it right, you should get stuck at some point. If you get stuck whilst holding A, then keep holding A. And if you get stuck while holding D, keep holding D. Because when you release your move keys, you'll start falling again. There's a sort of a rhythm to tapping your strafe keys into the wall that takes a little bit of practice. If you press your keys too fast, you're not going to react fast enough to which key you need to continue holding to stay stuck. And if you do it too slowly, you don't have that many attempts to get stuck before you fall and hit the ground. But after a bit of practice, hitting Wallbugs isn't actually too hard. And you can also do Wallbugs by holding S into the wall if you want to face the other way for a better view, which is how I get clips like these ones. I'm in the sky. I'm cheating. Mohammed, I'm cheating. Please don't report me to Uncle Dane though, but don't tell anyone, but I'm cheating. But how do you know which walls you can Wallbug and which ones you can't? Well, it's actually really simple. Remember that bounding box from earlier? That big collision hole that every character has? Well, you see, this box never rotates, even when you do. It's always this big static rectangle that's oriented in this way, almost like it's on a grid. Walls that you're able to Wallbug on are walls that are diagonal in relation to your bounding box. The corner of your bounding box pushes into the wall instead of the flat surface part. Finding these walls does take a little bit of getting used to, but generally you can just look around the map and see that most walls are angled on the grid. Then you can see the small handful of walls that clearly aren't aligned with every other wall. And the wall doesn't need to be super slanted either. Even a wall that is subtly slanted to the side like this one works just fine for hitting a Wallbug. Now the reason this works is a little bit complicated, and it involves a whole lot of maths. And maths is boring, so here's the really simple baby's first explanation of how a Wallbug works. The game is constantly doing two separate checks for collision. One of them's checking that you're colliding with stuff, and the other is constantly checking if you're about to get stuck in any given object. If you use the command CL show pos 1, your coordinates will appear on the top right of your screen. If you move side to side on a flat wall, you'll notice that only one of your coordinates changes. But on these slanted walls, both coordinates change. These two numbers changing rapidly causes the stuck check and the collision check to sometimes disagree with each other. And the stuck check will incorrectly assume that you're about to get stuck, so it zeroes out all of your velocity in response to this. You're not actually stuck in the wall. The game is just sort of panicking that you might get stuck in the wall. So you hover in the air in this strange bug. But it actually gets worse than this, because this isn't the only type of wall bug. There's also coordinate Wallbugs, which are caused by even more maths. These can be done on flat walls, but only if that wall is placed with coordinates that are a power of 2. Because of course, that just makes perfect sense. Something about the way computers round up and down numbers with reoccurring decimal places causes the game to get confused, and you get stuck in the wall just like a normal Wallbug. These are much less common, but there is one right here on CP Metalworks. But that's not even where the story ends, because there's also Linux Wallbugs, which are caused by even more maths. They work for much the same reason as coordinate Wallbugs, but instead of wiggling into the wall, you have to crouch to get stuck. And also, the coordinates of the wall can't be negative, they have to be positive. And the reason they're called Linux bugs is because they only work if you're playing on a server that is hosted on Linux. Because, yeah, sure, yeah, why not? Of course, there's a Linux Wallbug spot right here Ronkoff Bagel, thanks Tomato Tom, and there's another one on Jump Ando Bonus 2 that the Soldier World Record uses right here. Jesus Christ, I just skipped a lot of maths. Now, those two other types of Wallbugs are a little bit crazy, and they're a whole lot less common. But the normal Wallbugs on these slanted walls are very easy to do, and very easy to find spots to do them in. But do you know what else Wallbugs are good for? Avoiding fall damage. Sometimes when you enjoy rocket jumping a little bit too much, you'll end up in a situation like this. You have to do something or else you're going to die of fall damage. Wallbugs are a fantastic way to avoid dying to fall damage. But what do you do if there's no slanted wall nearby for you to fly towards? Well, luckily for you, there's actually quite a lot of ways to avoid fall damage in TF2. The most well-known of these is the Edgebug. If you fly towards the very edge of any surface, you can clip the edge of that surface without the game ever treating you as grounded. And this redirects a ton of your momentum forwards and prevents you from taking any fall damage. This is so easy to do by accident that most people who have played a Source game have probably hit at least one Edgebug at some point in their life. But the reason this works is a whole lot less well known though. It's to do with that tick system we mentioned earlier. TF2 servers check for stuff happening 66 times every second, but it's possible to have enough speed where at the start of a tick you hit the ground, but you slide slightly forwards before the next tick occurs. So at the start of the tick you're above the ground, then in the middle of the tick you hit the floor and slide off, and at the end of the tick you're still airborne. TF2 is only checking things once per tick, so since you were airborne when you started the tick and when you ended the tick, the game sort of forgets that you ever hit the ground at all, so you take 0 fall damage. But touching the floor still redirects your momentum as you might expect it to. There's also another thing called a Texturebug, which is much more precise than an Edgebug, but you're much more in control over whether you hit it or not. Where a brush ends, or where two brushes meet, you can perform a Texturebug, which basically just means anywhere there's an opening on a map, like this door on Badwater. Whilst you're falling, get close to the wall and hold W, but make sure to also hold either A or D. In this example, we'll hold A. Right as the top of your head passes the bottom of this brush, you tap in the opposite direction. This causes the game to get confused and zero out your velocity for a single tick, after which you just begin falling again. The reason this works is maths, but the simple answer is this. The game incorrectly assumes that you're colliding with the top part of this brush, even though you're absolutely nowhere near it. So it zeroes out your speed before realizing you didn't collide with anything and makes you continue falling. Because you're traveling downwards, the game checks for collisions on top of stuff. If you were moving upwards, it would check underneath stuff because you're moving upwards into it. So when you fall past the bottom face, it checks collisions on the brushes you're nearby. And 99% of the time, it correctly realizes that you aren't going to hit the top because you're nowhere near it. But for some reason that I don't fully understand, tapping the opposite direction in this way makes the game briefly think that you collided with the top of the brush, so it zeroes out your momentum before realizing that that didn't actually happen. And of course, the full explanation, as usual, is maths. Texturebugs are super precise to hit, but you feel way more in control of this than an Edgebug, at least in my opinion, because you're actually like pressing buttons to make it work, rather than just strafing to a lip and hoping you hit it. But both Edgebugs and Texturebugs are very precise and super easy to miss. But luckily, there's an even easier way to avoid fall damage than that. If you have enough horizontal speed while in the air, all you have to do is find a sloped surface and aim for it, and then you'll slide right up. Rampslides are super common in jump maps and in rollouts from spawn. It's a staple of rocket jumping and sticky jumping, but people sometimes don't realize you can use this to avoid fall damage as well. And the reason Rampslides work is super simple. If you have even a tiny amount of upwards velocity, the game doesn't like putting you into a grounded state. So when you're traveling really fast and you hit a slope, your move speed is redirected upwards, and your new upwards momentum prevents you from becoming grounded, so you slide right off. But there's just one more method you can use to avoid fall damage that you you might not have heard of. A method that you can use literally anywhere. No slopes or walls or anything required. The one caveat is that they are incredibly precise and partially random. Meet the Jumpbug.
Yeah.
Is that an Edgebug?
Jumpbugs are a weird tech in TF2 that essentially allows you to jump off the ground whilst tricking the game into thinking that you never touched the ground in the first place. You perform a jump bug by holding crouch in the air, then uncrouching and pressing jump at the exact same time the instant your feet would hit the floor from uncrouching. If you do this right, you will jump off the floor but receive no fall damage at all. This is incredibly precise to hit, and I've only hit a jump bug once in a real game scenario, and calling it a real game is pretty rich considering it was an MGE clip. The reason this works is a little bit complicated, so we're gonna get down in the weeds and get our hands dirty to explain it, you know? Let's talk about that tick system again. The game checks for collisions and stuff 66 times every second. Each of these checks is called a tick. You get the idea. But inside of every tick, the game checks for a bunch of stuff, and it checks for it in order, one at a time. And to be more specific, the game is checking for all of these things. So every 66th of a second, the game runs down this checklist in order and then goes to the next tick and does it again. This is a long list of stuff, but for a jump bug, the only parts of this list that matter are these parts here. You'll notice that handling ducking and handling jumping are done before checking for ground and zeroing out velocity if you're touching the floor. This is very important. When you perform a jump bug, you uncrouch and jump inside the exact same tick. The game checks that you uncrouched. This causes your feet to extend down and hit the floor. Then the game sees that you jumped, so it jumps off the floor. But then after all of that, it checks for the ground. It sees ground, but you just jumped, so the game concludes that you don't need to be made grounded, you need to be made airborne, which skips over all of the taking fall damage part associated with touching the ground. This is very precise to hit, much more precise than basically anything we've talked about in this entire video. But luckily, there is a way to make this easier for yourself. You can get jump bug scripts that work something like this. I hold down crouch in the air, then I tap a single button, and that single button uncrouches me and presses jump at the exact same time. This syncs up the uncrouch and jump perfectly. Now all I have to do is hit that script button within a 66th of a second of hitting the ground, which is still not easy, but it's much easier than normal. But the problem with jump bugs is that even if you're a god at hitting them, sometimes you just can't hit one, because jump bugs are partially random. Because if you're falling too fast, you miss the window to hit it. On one tick, you'll be too high up for the uncrouch to make your feet touch the floor, and on the next tick, you've already hit the ground. So jump bugs have a level of randomness to them that means that no matter how good you are, you can never hit one every single time. But despite that, they're still, you know, pretty cool. Now, avoiding fall damage is obviously useful for a class like Soldier or Demo Man, right? Classes that can propel themselves into the sky with their explosions. So maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, I main Spy, so I don't really need to know how to avoid fall damage because I'm not going that high into the air. Well, that's where you're wrong.
I got someone.
Oh! It's fucking beautiful! If you're not launching into the skybox when playing Spy, then clearly you aren't thinking big enough. This piece of tech doesn't really have a name, not one that I know of anyway. So I'm gonna take the liberty to give this its name right now, and call it the Trampoline. Or at least that's what a Dutch guy told me to call it anyway.
Hey, what's up?
The way the Trampoline works is somewhat simple. All you need is a friend and something to get stuck inside of. These one-way doors on Swiftwater are perfect for this. They only open from one side, but if you slowly move onto the other side of that door, the door will close on top of you and you get stuck inside of it. So you get your friend to play Soldier with the rocket jumper. You get them stuck in the door, and then they start shooting themselves with the rocket jumper a bunch of times. After they do that, all you have to do is jump on their head. That's a really shitty jump, but that is.
Kill a soldier, kill a soldier, kill a soldier.
Flares got him instead. The angle that you get launched off of their head is based on the angle that they they aimed their rockets at. If they aimed directly downwards, you will go directly upwards. But if they aimed more forwards at an angle, you'll get launched more at the angle in the opposite direction. But this means that there's a way for you to launch into the skybox as any class, which allows me to make my dreams a reality and finally be able to wallbug as Pootis. It might be the most useless wallbug spot in the world though, because anyone walking through this choke can just see you without even looking up. But it's still pretty funny regardless. But you might be wondering, well, why does jumping on the stuck guy's head make you go flying anyway? Well, if you're above someone and they rocket or sticky jump up into your feet super fast, you get bounced up into the sky. This is something that can happen in normal gameplay. So when you jump on the stuck player's head, this exact same thing is happening, because despite being stuck and completely stationary, the game thinks that the stuck player is actually moving extremely fast. Remember that list we talked about earlier of all the stuff that the game checks for inside of a single tick? Well, the very first item on this list is the reason this trick works. The game tries to get you unstuck, and if it can't do that, it skips all the way to the last 3 checks on the list. And the checks that it skips are quite important ones. Most notably for us, it skips the part where it gives you grounded movement, and it skips the part where it caps your velocity too. So despite being on the ground and not moving, you can give yourself tons of speed without moving a single inch. And this speed is uncapped too. And by having players jump on your head, you can exert that speed onto those players. But the trampoline isn't the only thing you can do whilst getting stuck. You want to see the tick perfect sandwich? Watch this.
Take a perfect sandwich.
Did you see that? Did you see that? Did you catch it? Did you catch that? That was fucking epic, no? Tick perfect sandwich. Doing this consumes the sandwich, but the game gets confused and leaves behind this spooky phantom sandwich in the process. The phantom sandwich doesn't actually do anything, but it's pretty epic if you ask me. You can also probably do this with Scout's lunchbox items too, but I couldn't be bothered to test it. If you were looking for something a little more, I don't know, useful, then you're in luck. Your flamethrower's range isn't fixed. If you're moving super fast, your flame particles from your flamethrower will adopt all of the speed that you have and move super fast too. And whilst you're flying through the air, this makes intuitive sense. But if you're stuck in a door and you give yourself a bunch of velocity, let's say with the detonator, your flame particles will gain a bunch of range despite the fact that you aren't moving at all. So you can out-snipe sniper players with your flame particles. Now, I probably shouldn't even be showing you guys this because I know some of you are going to go ruin the fun of others with it, but just a disclaimer, if you go and do this in a community server like Uncletopia or something, you will get permanently banned. And as for doing it in casual, just be nice to people, Don't bully the children too hard, it's not fair on them. But there's one final thing you can do with getting stuck. Something that's maybe a little bit less useful, but still possible and very funny. You can do what's called a stuck launch, which is pretty self-explanatory, right? You can give yourself a bunch of velocity while stuck, and when you get unstuck, you fly off into the sunset. This one is a lot harder to do in real TF2. You can get stuck in these doors, but you have to wait for someone to come open the door before you can go flying. And even then, getting a good angle to launch at is very difficult. But there is a class who has a slightly easier time doing stuck launches. The engineer can build buildings that he himself can get stuck inside of. On jump maps, this is very easy. Walk off the ledge, see where it teleported you to, then build a sentry on top of that spot, then walk off again and you're stuck in your sentry. You then shoot rockets behind you until you're really fast, and then you move the sentry and you go zoom. But you can also do this in real games. It's just like way harder. You have to be on a payload map and you have to be on blue team. And ideally, you have a friend play medic to heal you, otherwise you just die. You build a level 3 and you carry it near the cart. You then have to place your level 3 on a turn in the cart track. Sharper turns make it easier, but you can do it anytime the cart turns. Place your gun right on the corner, something like this, and then you stand next to the cart and have it push you inside of your sentry. And you can shoot yourself a bunch of times to give yourself speed and go flying mode. This is really hard to do in a real game, but I did eventually get a clip in a real game. I'm in! Beat me? You're beating me. Keep beating me. He's about to stop my gun. Kill him, kill him, kill him.
He's dead.
Nice. Now what's this?
Oh, he's in.
I'm in. My gun is in front of their spawn.
Medic versus sentry gun. Boom.
It's fragging! My gun's gonna no, it dies. No, it died. Well, I got the clip. Now, was it the most exceptional clip in the world? No, it wasn't, alright? But look, I tried my hardest, okay? TF2 is a game about a lot of things. It's a game about hats. It's a game about spamming through corridors. But most importantly to me, TF2 is a game about source engine jank and all of the weird and wonderful ways that you can abuse it. And recently, I've been on a journey to discover the single dumbest thing I can do in a public TF2 server to hit a clip on some poor free-to-play that installed the game 10 minutes ago. But our journey doesn't start in public TF2 servers. Instead, it starts on a private one. It starts on a jump map. Me and my friend Layla had a crazy idea. There's all these jump maps designed for Soldier to rocket jump around on, but we wanted to know how hard it would be to beat some of our favourite jump maps as this little guy. Pyro on his own can't really go very far. A single jetpack jump is the highest and farthest you can go, but that little jetpack alone isn't going to let you beat Jump Beef. But with the help of a friend, a Pyro can reflect jump, reflecting an enemy rocket into the ground to rocket jump with their rocket. Take a look at Jump Beef, for example. This map is pretty easy, so most of the jumps are incredibly simple. The detonator comes in handy too, because if you hold right click with this thing, you can give yourself a boost from literally anywhere. But then we reach jumps like this, where things get a bit more tricky. This gap is just too far for one reflect jump, but with two reflect jumps, it's easy.
Because I can shoot right after you jump. Yeah.
Oh shit,
That's
that was
sick.
awesome.
That's sick.
There's also this jump, where you'd normally wall shot around in a big circle to reach the top. But as a Pyro, this is just way too high for one rocket. So instead, my Soldier syncs up 2 rockets for me to reflect and reach the end with. And now we're at the final jump. This is pretty trivial on Soldier. Shoot rockets at the walls to reach the end. But on Pyro, this requires a pretty insane setup. A floor reflect plus a wall reflect sends me pretty far, but it's still not far enough to make it to the end. So we had to get a little bit creative.
Yes!
Oh, it's cinema! This was the first jump map we beat as Pyro, but it wasn't the only one. We beat a bunch of different maps, but the most interesting two were Jump Apex and Jump for Starters. These maps both get relatively difficult for Soldier, which means that for Pyro, things get absolutely insane.
You like
Oh my god, it's fucking gross!
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Let me show you 2 examples. Like, check out this jump. For Soldier, this jump is a series of pre-fires that launch you towards the end. But for Pyro, this jump poses some problems. The gap from this lower ramp to this far ramp at the end is just way too big to actually reach. But the plan we came up with to conquer this jump was a little bit insane.
You need to cover.
Ooh. Oh, shit.
Oh my god.
Oh, shit. That's crazy. Crouching the reflect jump sends you way too high for this to work, so you need to uncrouch reflect jump to get the perfect height to reach the wall. Now our next jump is on Jump for Starters, and it looks relatively unimposing. It's just a really long corridor, a jump that on Soldier just requires some decent wall shots to reach the end. But on Pyro, this distance is absolutely enormous, way farther than anything we'd done before. We tried a bunch of different solutions, but the one we ended up with was, to put it simply, completely ridiculous. My soldier shoots a rocket at me. I reflect that rocket back at them. As I reflect that rocket, they pre-fire a rocket towards the end of the jump. Then they sync my reflected rocket with their own rocket jump, flying towards the end of the jump to catch up with their first pre-fire. Then they sync another rocket with the first pre-fire, allowing them to triple from the end of the jump back towards the start. Then they get the perfect speed and height to sync up 4 rockets back towards the start of the jump. And then...
Holy shit.
Oh, it's just beautiful. It's just fucking beautiful. Beating jump maps on Pyro was insanely fun. Because the map wasn't designed for this, it forced us to get incredibly creative with the solutions to a lot of the jumps. Outside of the difficult execution, it almost felt like playing a puzzle game. But all of these crazy concepts really got the gears in my head turning. You know, it was really just like awakening something deep in my brain. Doing all this stuff on jump maps is fun and all, but wouldn't it be more fun if we did it on a real map against real players who are really stupid? I just hit a clip on a toddler, like that guy.
This is gonna be a real piece of piss.
You might be thinking, oh, well, you could never pull any of this off in a real match. Right? Syncing up rockets over a long distance like we did on the jump map doesn't work in a real match, obviously. But you can sync up a bunch of rockets. You just need to play some Pyro Tennis to do it. You need a Pyro on one team, then a soldier and another Pyro on the enemy team. The soldier shoots a rocket at the enemy Pyro. That Pyro reflects that rocket back to the next Pyro. As the next Pyro reflects it back, the soldier tries to time his own rocket to sync up with the reflect. Repeat this for as long as you have ammo, and then reflect those rockets into your own feet to go into space. If you didn't know, TF2 actually has a speed limit. That speed limit in one direction is 3,500 hammer units a second, which looks something like this. Reaching this speed limit is usually insanely difficult in a real match, but with this method, reaching maximum velocity is trivial. Jesus Christ! Now you might be wondering, how am I taking no damage if I'm reflecting like 8 rockets directly into my own feet? Well, that's simple. It's the Rocket Jumper. Rocket Jumper rockets do 0 damage, but they do exert knockback on the player that fired the rocket. When you reflect a rocket, the game starts treating that rocket as if you fired it. So you can reflect jump with Rocket Jumper rockets, and you take 0 damage doing so. This also means that our little wall shot setup we did on Jump Beef works completely fine in a real TF2 match.
Oh, trick stab.
Oh my god! If you wanted to play Pyro Tennis with real rockets that do real damage, you can do that too.
Finally.
This clip took us so long to get, it's insane. Now, all of this Pyro Tennis gave us another idea. An idea that's way dumber. I'll use paint to demonstrate. Look at this, right? So imagine, right, you got Pyro Tennis with regular rockets, but in between the 2 pyros, right, you build teleporters, and you just keep the rally of rockets going for as long as possible, hoping someone takes the teleporters, and then just fucking instantly dies. This one is, like, really dumb, and for some reason, the citizens of 2-Fort really didn't find it as funny as we found it.
Why is this guy using the red thing?
Help! I hit him with the rocket.
There's just the squadron, the military has arrived.
Behind you guys.
Just like in the bottom left of my, look at my bottom left of my screen. It's like a happy little guy. This one's been going for a while. There's a little guy in the bottom left of my screen again. Oh! Did you look at my funny little guy on my screen?
I did. That is what that is.
The bundle's terrible.
So fucked.
It's the same guy. This is how the last month and a half of my life has been going. It's a simple process, really. You just try and think of dumb things to do in a TF2 casual match. Ideally, things that involve niche TF2 tech. Then you go into a public server and try and do those things. And then you try and iterate on the original idea to make it as ridiculous as humanly possible. And sometimes, to get a good clip, you need to revisit the classics. In an older video of mine, I talked about stuck launches in TF2. You can get stuck inside these doors on Swiftwater, and if you shoot yourself with an explosive weapon a bunch whilst you're stuck, you'll give yourself a bunch of velocity without actually moving anywhere. The game thinks this stuck player is traveling really fast. This lets you do two crazy things. You can give your Pyro's Flamethrower infinite range, and you can launch people into the sky. If you want to know more about how that actually works, then go back to this timestamp. This tech is incredibly fun to do, but the problem with it is that getting stuck in a wall is like really hard. So stuck launches don't really have many practical uses. Or do they? Sorry. As it turns out, these doors on Swiftwater are just the tip of the iceberg for getting people stuck. There's two other super good ways to do this. The first one is called a teletrap. When an engineer builds a teleporter, the game does a little check around where you're building to make sure that a player could fit on top of your teleporter to prevent people getting stuck. But it turns out the check above the teleporter is a bit too lenient, and in certain places you can build teleporters that get people stuck in the roof. Now most players use teletraps to troll their teammates, but that's like really cringe, right? We're using it for a much more noble cause, like giving a Pyro infinite range in a casual server. Maybe this is just as cringe, actually, maybe. There's a guy in that window. Get him.
Yeah, you can shoot through the window as well. You're a cheater.
I didn't expect to feel so mean.
You're a cheater.
I'm not cheating, I'm awesome. It's epic TF2 tech, you just wouldn't get it.
Oh,
It's a nuke.
God.
Damage
Oh
numbers.
my God.
I got a headshot. It's
No.
over.
Oh,
No,
you
they're
didn't
kicking me.
Oh.
Please don't kick me. I'm sorry. It was funny. I'm
Are
sorry.
they actually kicking you for cheating?
I
Yeah.
cheated. After the vote kick started, I should have announced to the server, like, no, guys, you don't understand. I'm not cheating. I'm actually really clever and smart and using quirks of the Source engine to do cool things. It's tech, guys. You don't understand. It's tech. The Sniper Pyro gimmick got old really fast. It just kind of felt mean. Like, it's funny for 5 minutes, but then I just felt like I was bullying children on the internet. So we gave up on this one pretty fast. But there's another way to get stuck. A method that is way more useful to us and is way more janky than a simple teletrap. Meet the Displacement stuck launch. A displacement is the tool that TF2 map makers use to make natural looking geometry. In certain spots, you can crouch walk into a displacement, then uncrouch into the wall while holding W. And if you do it right, you will get stuck inside of the wall. And weirdest of all, this bug only works on Linux servers. If you're on Windows and you try to do this offline, it just won't work. But fortunately, Valve casual servers are all running on Linux, so you can do this in casual matches as much as you want. I'm not 100% sure why this bug happens, but to my knowledge, here's how this works. When you're crouched and you try to uncrouch, the game checks above your head for obstructions, and if it finds one, it doesn't let you stand up. When you crouch walk into a displacement, sometimes there will be a piece of the displacement above your head preventing you from standing up. But on certain spots where that obstruction above you is really small, the game's uncrouch check will bug out. The game will check above you and incorrectly assume that there's nothing above your head, when in reality, there's a tiny piece of wall above you that you can get stuck inside of. And this miscalculation only happens on Linux servers for some reason that I don't understand. And in certain spots, if you do this glitch perfectly, you can fully walk through the wall and get out of bounds. And I'm not going to show you how to do that. Building sentry guns outside the map is cringe and ruins the fun of everyone in your server, and I'm not going to help you do that. But what I will gladly help you do is get stuck in a wall so that you can launch your friend into the sky so that they can hit a clip. So here's what we managed to do in a TF2 casual server. In this corner on PL Snowy Coast, there's a displacement that you can get stuck in. And if you've played this map a ton, you might also know that there's a weird invisible ledge that you can stand on above this cave. So the plan was simple. Get a player up on that ledge.
Oh
Boom.
my god.
It's free. I got one guy. No, Pootis is shooting me.
Yeah,
Help.
if I try to get flinch resistance.
If they open the door, I can see into their spawn. Oh, I died! No!
No.
No, he's a Noah. So now, yeah, you crouch on his head, and then you jump on my head. Oh my! There you go. The Pootis in the sky is fucking hilarious.
Dude, I'm better run the ammo though.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna jump. I'm
can die.
gonna
I'll
jump
kill
up there.
myself
Yeah, I'll
after.
jump up
An
there
ammo
and kill
delivery.
myself.
Did you get my ammo? I don't.
Yeah, I did.
Take
Level
this.
2 sentry there.
Get that ammo delivery.
No, I'm getting
Fuck, they're
shot at,
shooting you.
man.
No, Pootis, no. There's also multiple spots on PL Pier around this cave. There's one up on this ledge above the cart, and then there's two on the left and right of this cave. And this one is really powerful because it can be used by both teams at multiple points in the game. At the start of the match, a red player gets stuck and a blue player launches off their head. And later on in the match, a blue player can get stuck here and a red spy can sneak behind and launch up into the sky right above the enemy team's spawn. Oh, there you go. Yo.
That was perfect.
And I go backstab. We should.
No.
Boom. 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 Also, this one random spy player started shooting me and accidentally jumped on my head, and he looked very confused about the whole ordeal. There's a funny quirk of these stuck launches that we learned about while testing. If you fall from any height and land on the stuck person's head, then you will get launched directly into the sky. This is great if you want a lot of height, but if you want horizontal speed, this method doesn't really work. But if you can stand stationary on the stuck player's head and then jump off of them, suddenly you can be launched in any direction you choose. Whatever angle that the stuck player shoots themselves at will get directly transferred onto you. So the trick we learned is that you need an extra player. Climb on top of the first guy's head, then walk off seamlessly onto the stuck player's head, then jump off of them to get launched directly forwards. There's a spot on CP Moss Rock that's incredible for this exact thing. Behind blue team's first spawn is this tiny rock that you can stand on without dying. And right over here is a displacement that you can get stuck inside of. So you can get a red sniper into this spot by just launching them all the way over there. Now, I would have done this in a real match, but unfortunately, no one plays Moss Rock. Like, when was the last time you played CP Moss Rock? For me, it was like, I don't know, 1988 or something. It's been like decades. So I got sent this one video. It's called Psyche Revived by Igor. And this video is incredible. It's one of the highest effort frag movies I've ever seen. It's linked below and you should totally go watch it. And in this video, I saw things that I just couldn't believe. The first one was really simple. It's a detonator flare gun sync. You have a pyro on one team with the flare gun and a detonator pyro on the enemy team. The detonator guy stands on top of the flare gun guy's head and then detonator jumps. As the detonator goes off, the flare gun pyro shoots you. And since the detonator technically set you on fire for a brief amount of time, the flare gun crits you. The flare knockback plus the detonator knockback sends you absolutely flying. There you go.
Let's go! That's sick.
But this isn't the craziest thing I saw in that video. The craziest part was the Backstab Launch. This is revolutionary technology. It's incredibly easy to set up and can launch any class into the skybox instantly, and they take 0 damage for doing it. And you can do it from anywhere, because all you need is to stand on a guy's head. No getting stuck in displacements required. Now, in the past, I'd already tried to do this. I knew someone dying while you were stood on their head could launch you, because knockback can be transferred from one player to another if you're on their head. It's similar to how the stuck launches work, except instead of that guy being stuck in the wall, he's just dying on the floor. But I never thought the tech was very good, because I could never get it to send me very far, because I was missing a piece of the puzzle, and that piece of the puzzle was the thermal thruster. The thermal thruster has a hidden stat, a stat that reads, wearer takes increased knockback. So if the guy on the bottom takes increased knockback, then that increased knockback gets transferred onto the guy on top. And all of this lets you do some absolutely ridiculous things.
Did that heavy just
And the holy grail of Backstab Launch clips. Well, I'll just let the clip speak for itself. I sent you. That was me. That was my fault. Oh, so I got it!
So I get it.
It's cinema. It's the best clip ever hit. Pack it up, cut the cameras. We're done here. We're done. We've peaked as a species. We don't need to continue. We're done. So, calling this next one tech is a pretty big stretch.
G'day.
But I just found it so funny that I can't not put it in the video.
You are 18.
The strategy is simple. Go on a map that has an enormously high skybox and have a Basejumper demo slowly float downwards while a sniper stands on their head and snipes people. And what map could be more suited for this than Higher Tower, where the tower just keeps going and going and going. We came up with this idea while doing something completely different. At first, we were just launching 2 people into space with stickies. The demo places a bunch of stickies, then a medic Ubers another guy while he crouches on the stickies. And then the demo launches that guy into space. And we did this for a while with varying levels of success.
Beat the shit out of people. It's great. Just frag out with the shotgun.
I mean, I headshot him. By the way, that sniper was so confused by what happened to him that he just like forgot how to talk afterwards.
How did you up there anyway?
Doing this gave us the genius idea that you could use it to skip climbing up the tower the normal way, and you could just send a guy straight to the top. Which got us thinking, if we could get people to the top super easily, what would we actually do up there? Which is how we came up with what I like to call the Basejumper taxi service. The engineer crouches on top of 14 Scottish resistance stickies, and then he gets launched to the moon. And the funny part about this is that even giving an engineer maximum velocity directly upwards didn't let him skip the entire tower. It's so tall that you still have to run like a third of the rest of the tower the normal way, which takes forever. But then at the top, the engineer builds a teleporter. Then the medic player switches to sniper and tellies to the top of the tower. The demo crouch walks off, and then the sniper jumps on his head. Staying on top of the demo's head is really hard because you need to manually walk at the same speed as he moves to avoid slipping off. But eventually, the demo reaches an invisible wall that lets you stand perfectly still in the sky. But now comes the hard part, getting a kill from all the way up here.
Oh yeah, actually.
That's why I actually hit people then.
I tried to do this one. Oh. Yo, can you clip this?
Airshot that guy. This is actually way harder than it looks because of just how alien it feels to be trying to look directly down and snipe the tops of people's heads. But people's reactions made the struggle just completely worth it. He's shooting a flare at me. Oh, nice shot. In ye olden days of 2007, when TF2 first released, taunts were just a funny, goofy emote to spam at people while you were bored or something. But in 2008, Valve added taunt kills, and the world would never be the same again. These taunt kills are meant to be like a funny joke, right? Like, it's just a dumb thing that you'll occasionally kill a free-to-play engineer with because they don't know what's happening, right? Well, what if I told you that you were completely wrong? Because taunt kills are more than meets the eye, and they hide some crazy tech that lets you get kills that look completely impossible. Killing people through the floor, hiding the animation of your taunt killing people from angles that are completely ridiculous, and even being able to kill people with most of the taunts in the game through walls like this one. Today, I'm gonna bestow upon you this ancient taunt kill technology for you to go and terrorize casual with, so that you, just like me, can get called a cheater for Pootis powering a guy in Uncletopia. So first things first, let's learn about the taunt kills, because there's 3 types of taunt kills in the game, and not all of them are created equally. First, we have what I like to call the box taunts. These taunts are the simplest form and most boring type of taunt kill. The way they work is incredibly simple. At the end of the animation, a big cube is spawned in front of you in the direction your taunt is facing. interesting. This cube can't be moved in any way. You can only aim it horizontally sideways, and your vertical aiming doesn't affect it whatsoever. So these taunt kills tend to be the worst ones. These are the 4 box taunts in the game, and they're the least interesting and least powerful taunt kills. 3 out of 4 of them do damage to engineer buildings though, which most taunt kills don't do, so I guess that's, you know, neat. But the second type of taunt kill is where we get to the good stuff. They're called Hitscan Taunt kills, or ray tracing taunt kills, depending on who you ask. These taunt kills are also incredibly simple. All the game does is draw a straight line from the player's eyes in whatever direction they were looking before the taunt occurred. The game treats this line like a really short-ranged bullet, but unlike with box taunts, you can aim this short-ranged bullet anywhere you like. So you can taunt kill people above and below you in ways that don't look possible just by aiming at them before the taunt happened. There's 6 of these types of taunts in the game, all of which are basically exactly the same, all apart from this one. The Pootis Pow is by far the best and most powerful taunt kill in the game, and let me tell you why. Every other hit scan taunt in the game has a range of exactly 128 hammer units, but the Pootis Pow has a range of 500 hammer units, which isn't exactly a sniper rifle or anything, but it's way further than most people realize. And because you can aim anywhere you like with this taunt, you can get some kills at angles that don't even look possible. Oh, and this thing we're doing right here is called a Edgebug. My crosshair is pointed over the ledge, but my head isn't peeking over it, so enemy players can't really see me or shoot me at all. You can do this as sniper and heavy to, like, you know, actually shoot at people with your guns, and it's quite powerful. But you can also use it to Pootis Pow people from ridiculous angles where you're completely invisible. And this is how I got called a hacker in Uncletopia. But there's more we can do with the Pootis Pow. If the hit scan bullet that the taunt kill spawns is just like a normal bullet, then we can shoot our taunt kill through any gap that you could shoot a normal bullet through. He just wasn't in range. I got someone! I got someone with it. It's fucking beautiful. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it just the most incredible thing you've ever seen? All of the 6 hit scan taunt kills can do this, but all of the other taunt kills are melee range only. So there's not that many spots to really utilize it with. But the Pootis Pow has more than enough range to find funny crack shots to kill people through on most maps. And I've come to dub this technique the quadruple P, the pixel perfect Pootis Pow, because it, you know, really rolls off the tongue, right? There are so many of these on so many maps. Some of them are super unrealistic to hit people in, but some of them are incredible spots to spam through. This one on Borneo might be the most powerful one we've found. Shooting through this gap in the crate right here, it literally spams directly onto the cart, and you're completely invisible whilst you do it. And this area is very easily defended by your team, so you won't just die trying to spam it. We also found this spot here on Barn Blitz, which is also completely disgusting. It can reach people all the way on the health pack. Even if they're right up against that back wall, it will still hit them. And then the holy grail of quadruple Ps can be found on Swiftwater. There's a bug in Team Fortress 2 that lets you shoot through walls in certain very specific places where 2 objects meet. There isn't actually a gap between this window and the frame, but because the window is only 1 hammer unit thick, you can get a super precise lineup that lets you fire bullets through the window frame. But you can see it very clearly if you try and aim through the gap as sniper. You can see your sniper dot go through the wall. And if you can fire through it as sniper, then you can also taunt kill people through it with hit scan taunts. The lineup is insanely precise, but we did find one. First of all, open up your dev console and type in CL show pos 1. Doing this will bring up this thing in the HUD in the top right corner. Then, if you hold W all the way against the wall, and then hold D all the way into the right corner where this barrel is, you can use the angle on your show pos to line up the crack shot. If you get this number here to be between 90.04 and 90.08, it'll work every time. This works with any of the hit scan taunts, because the wall is thin enough for even the shortest ranged ones to still poke through onto the other side. But of course, it's most powerful with the Pootis Pow, because you can hit people almost all the way up against the back fence. If you want to fire it through the wall on red side, you need to not only get the angle of your aim, but also your position too. We found so many spots to quadruple P through that there's too many to show in this video, but they're incredibly easy to find. Just go into a private server and play sniper. If you can aim through the gap, if your sniper dot goes through, then your taunt will also go through. And you do need to test the spots, because there's some spots that look like you could fire through, but if you actually go and test it, you can't fire through it at all. And you don't even need to find spots on every map. As long as you find them on the Uncle Topian 8, then you should be good. Badwater, Barn Blitz, Borneo, Dust Bowl, Frontier, Pier, Swiftwater, and Upward. Find spots to do it on these 8 maps, and you've basically found spots on every map in the game. Throw in 2 Fort Harvest and Hightower, and then you've even got the 24/7 servers covered too. But there's one last thing that some of the Hitscan Taunts have that none of the other taunt kills can do, and that's a stun mechanic. The Huntsman, the Ubersaw, and the Gunslinger. These 3 taunt kills have a stun hitbox before the damaging portion of the taunt occurs, and this stun is pretty good. It makes it so that as long as the stun hits, the damage portion is guaranteed to hit. Or is it? Sorry. As it turns out, the stun mechanic isn't very good at, like, actually stunning people. Your movement keys are completely disabled during this stun, but there's a bunch of things that you can do while stunned, like switching weapons and using voice lines. And most importantly, is that you can still taunt, which allows for some incredibly stupid things to happen. If you have good enough reaction times, you can conga taunt out of the stun like nothing ever happened. Any moving taunt will work for this, but as far as I'm aware, the conga is the fastest moving taunt that doesn't have, like, a startup animation like the skateboard or something. But maybe you don't own any moving taunts. If that's the case, then surely you're just doomed to die if you get stunned, right? Well, not quite. Because if you can taunt while stunned, then you can also taunt kill while stunned too. You just have to be Ubered and have a fast animation taunt kill weapon equipped. The Pootis POW is, of course, the best option for this, because if you needed more reason to believe that the Pootis POW is the best taunt kill in the game, then you should know that it's also the fastest taunt kill in the game. You might be thinking that the Huntsman is faster, but it actually isn't. The stun portion of the Huntsman comes out very fast, but the actual damage portion takes longer to occur than the Pootis POW does. So if you're an Ubered heavy and you get stunned by the Huntsman, you can switch weapons to your melee and then taunt kill the sniper before his taunt even ends. As usual, the Pootis POW is clearly the mightiest of the taunt kills. But there is a third type of taunt kill that we haven't mentioned yet. They're not box taunts, and they're also not hitscan taunts. They're something else, and I like to call them the odd ones out. These 3 taunts have 3 completely unique ways of functioning. They're not hitscan, they're not box taunts, but they're also not the same as each other either. First is the Scorch Shot. This taunt kill is by far the most boring of the 3. It works exactly the same as a hitscan taunt does, but instead of firing a bullet, it fires a Scorch Shot flare. The moment it fires the flare, the game starts a timer. If the flare hits an enemy within the first 50 milliseconds of being fired, then the flare will deal 420 damage. Any time after that, and it does the normal damage of a flare. You might think this sounds quite good, because you can aim it in funny ways and stuff, but because it fires a big projectile and not an invisible bullet, that means that the projectile's too big to fire through most good gaps. And 50 milliseconds is a very, very short amount of time, meaning the range to insta-kill someone with it is basically melee range. But the Scorch Shot taunt does have one thing going for it. All it does is copy all of the attributes of the last flare you fired and fires the exact same flare again when you next taunt. And TF2 has a lot of modifiers it's able to add to shots that get fired out of your weapons. Most notably is a crit modifier. So as it turns out, if you fire a crit Scorch Shot flare and then use the Scorch Shot's taunt, the flare that the taunt fires will also be a crit. And this works regardless of how you got that crit, whether it was a random crit or crit boosted from the Kritzkrieg. But better yet, the taunt will continue to copy that crit flare forever, so long as you never fire another flare with your primary fire ever again. It even persists after dying and after the round ends and the team switch. So long as you don't change class pass, change maps, change servers, or fire your weapon with left click, you will permanently have a Scorch Shot crit loaded into your taunt. This sounds insane, right? Permanent guaranteed Scorch Shot crits to just spam down corridors forever. And it is relatively powerful in the right circumstances, but it's not all it's cracked up to be. As much as guaranteed crits are good, it's only guaranteed if you stand still taunting for 5 seconds in order to fire it. And you can aim the taunt flare to go wherever you want it to, but you have to peek a corner and stand still while you do it. So you will just die if you try and spam this on 90% of the maps.
That's correct.
If you're on the defending team on a map that's incredibly choke point heavy, it does pack some serious punch, but it's really not as powerful as it sounds like it would be, especially on a server where random crits are just enabled anyway. But the next of the three is the Rainblower, and this one's a little bit more exciting. The Rainblower is coded in a super weird way. The taunt summons a big sphere that starts around the Pyro's feet. The ball's collision and hit detection works kind of like an explosion, but it technically isn't an explosion because it doesn't do self-damage and it doesn't do damage to engineer buildings. But this ball hits as many enemies as you can fit inside the radius, but it deals reduced damage for each player hit. The first player hit takes 400 damage, then the next takes half of that at 200, then the next 100, and it keeps halving until you reach 1 damage. I'm not really sure why it does this, to be honest. I guess Valve was afraid of making a big AoE taunt that can insta-kill anyone inside it, but they kinda already made that, so I don't really know why. So the Rainblower is weird. It creates an explosion that's not quite an explosion around the Pyro's feet, and it does reduced damage to each consecutive player hit for some reason. And it's quite slow too, and has a really big obvious particle effect around it. So you might think that this Taunt Kill isn't very good, but it does have one thing that's a bit of a saving grace, and that's the range on it. The ball of damage is spawned around the Pyro's feet, right? So that means that the range downwards is a lot bigger than the range upwards. If someone stands on your head when you do the taunt, they can actually jump over the explosion if they time it right, but below you it goes quite far, so there's definitely some room for shenanigans if you're stood on top of a doorway spamming the taunt or something. But then finally there's the Equalizer, and this bad boy has some serious jank. This taunt is very simple. All it does is spawn an explosion on the soldier's right hand hitbox at the end of the taunt, and this one is a real explosion. It damages NG buildings and also damages the player taunting, killing them instantly. But because the taunt is so simple, it can also be very easily broken. For example, if you find a spot like this, where you can crouch into a corner with a thin roof above you, then you can kill people through the floor. When you're forced into a crouching animation and then you do a taunt, your character will fully stand up and do the taunt animation, even though there's no room above your character to actually stand up in. And this causes your character to clip through the floor. So when your soldier raises his right arm above his head at the end of the taunt, that right arm will be on the other side of the ceiling. So the explosion will happen there and kill anyone who's on the other side. And because there's a floor between you and the explosion doesn't actually hit you. It only hits players on the other side, meaning you can spam this indefinitely without taking any damage from your own taunt. But the obvious downside to this is that sticking your head through the floor means your hitboxes come with it, so people can just see you and shoot you in the head. But most people probably won't notice your head sticking through the floor, and if you get away with it, there are some seriously devious spots that you can use this trick in. There's also another infamous trick of killing people through walls with the Equalizer taunt. If you stand with your right arm up against a thin wall, you can taunt and then call for medic in the middle of your taunt animation, and that will cause your explosion to clip through the wall and kill people on the other side. The reason this works is because of some source engine jank. When you taunt, your hitboxes will line up with the animation of that taunt just fine. But if you call for medic, your character will do this gesture, raising their hand to their mouth like this. This gesture causes your hitboxes to break during the taunt. Your character's animation will keep playing, but the hitboxes will do the gesture animation and then go back to your default idling pose. Because the Equalizer explosion just spawns spawns on the player's right-hand hitbox, your right-hand hitbox pokes through the wall and kills people on the other side. The Equalizer is one of the slower taunt kills in the game though, so just going for raw taunt kills is pretty risky with it. But I want to let you in on a little secret, because there's actually a few ways that you can mask your taunts. Method number 1 is spinning around a lot. No, seriously. If you spin around right before taunting, sometimes the game will lag and the animation for your taunt won't line up with the direction that the taunt kill was actually aimed at. This isn't very useful for the Equalizer, but for taunts that are aim dependent, this is incredibly valuable. Although it's very difficult to do consistently without just spinning around and hoping you aimed at the right spot. I've gotten it to work a couple of times, but never consistently. But something that is easy to do consistently is high five bait people with this tech. Spin around furiously and then do the high five taunt, and your character will look like they're facing forwards, but the game actually thinks they're facing the other way. So people walk up in front of you to try and high five you, and the game doesn't register it. But this one's also incredibly niche. But luckily, there's actually an even better way to hide your taunts, a method that makes your taunt completely invisible from enemy players. Let me introduce you to the iPad. The ContTracker was added in the Jungle Inferno update. It's a little cosmetic that you can equip, and when you open your contract menu whilst you have that item equipped, your character does a little pose with their ContTracker out like this. But it turns out this item is very buggy, because you can just bind a button to open and close the ContTracker without needing to access the menu for it whatsoever. If you spam this button, some insanely strange things start to happen. You can move around and shoot your weapons and everything, but all your opponents see is you jankily skidding around with an iPad out. And there's tons of broken things you can do with the iPad, but in our case, it also lets you mask your taunt animations. Here's how you do it consistently. Make a bind that toggles your ContTracker on and off. Then jump, and whilst in the air, double tap your ContTracker button. Once you hit the ground, do your taunt kill next to an enemy player. Your character will be queuing up the taunt kill, but the people nearby won't be able to see the animation whatsoever. This can be done with any taunt in the game, but some taunts have particle effects and stuff that make it not ideal for this tech. But you can use this to make all of your taunt kill shenanigans even harder to predict and avoid. Although I wouldn't become too reliant on the iPad shenanigans, because people are catching on to it. Valve has patched a handful of bugs for the ContTracker already, so who knows how many they'll patch in the future. And Uncletopia has straight up disabled the command from being used entirely. And competitive sixes and Highlander in leagues like RGL and ETF2L all have rules against using the iPad to do things like this. In fact, in sixes and Highlander, half the stuff I mentioned in this video is explicitly banned. Killing people during setup time, killing people through walls and floors, disjointing your animation from your hitboxes, all of these things are bannable offenses in competitive leagues, with certain spots on certain maps being explicitly mentioned as being disallowed. Although the pixel perfect Pootis POW is incredibly ambiguous in the rules. You're not actually killing someone through a wall. You're doing it through a tiny crack in the wall that a sniper player could easily shoot through if they wanted to. And the sniper player wouldn't be disallowed from doing this in any way. But I can assure you, if you Pootis POW'd a player in a tournament through a crack like this, you would definitely get reported for it. And you'd have to go and explain your epic tech knowledge to an ETF2L admin because of it. If you're the average TF2 player, you've probably played Upward for hundreds, if not thousands of hours. And you might think you know everything there is to know about the map. But I'm here to prove you wrong, and show you some of Upward's best kept secrets. And trust me when I say you should watch to the end of this video, because I guarantee there will be things in here that you had no idea existed, even if you are the most seasoned of TF2 veterans. Let's get to it. So there's various signs on Upward that point you in the direction of the control points. And some of these signs can change out after blue caps a certain point. All of the signs that change at some point all share one weird property. They're all very sticky. If you jump into these signs, you will get stuck inside of them, sometimes just for a second, and sometimes permanently. The reason why this happens is pretty complicated. Shunic has a great video about it that I'll link to in the description. But the simple answer is that when this sign gets swapped out, the normal sign is swapped out with an evil, nefarious, messed up sign that miscalculates what's supposed to happen when you touch it. You might think this is some useless knowledge, but you can actually use the sign's stickiness to your advantage in a bunch of different ways. If I jump into the sign and get stuck, I'm constantly airborne because my feet are not touching the ground. This means that items that do special things while airborne or rocket jumping can be permanently active whilst you're stuck in the sign. If you rocket jump into it, the Market Gardener will always crit, and the airstrike will always have increased attack speed. This sign in particular is right outside of blue team's spawn, so you can get stuck in it with the airstrike and just spawn camp people with crazy fast attack speed rockets. You can also just, you know, hold out your shovel and cross your fingers that someone walks up to you and lets you, like, hit them in the face. Another benefit of these signs is that it gets you stuck in a variety of different ways. When I rocket jump into it, sometimes I get teleported immediately out of the sign back onto the ground. Sometimes I get stuck in the sign for a small amount of time and then get kicked out. And sometimes I get completely stuck, unable to move even if I shoot rockets at myself. The only way to get unstuck here is to die. And each variety of being stuck has a way that it can be abused. Getting permanently stuck allows you to give yourself infinite velocity. And if an enemy player stands on my head while I have a ton of velocity like this, they will be launched great distances. Getting teleported out of the sign to the ground isn't particularly useful, but it does let you get stuck inside of enemy players, which is, you know, funny, I guess. And getting partially stuck, where the sign gets you unstuck after a second or two, lets you do some very crazy things. When you get partially stuck, you can shoot rockets at yourself to give yourself velocity without actually moving. Then, when the game unsticks you, all of that velocity will send you flying in one direction. With the rocket jumper, you can only fit in 2 rockets before the sign will get you unstuck. But a double rocket jump sends you really far and lets you get some really cool kills. Yes, I got him! I got Evil Pickle! With the airstrike, you can shoot up to 4 rockets at yourself and get launched at 1 billion miles an hour out of the sign. This is really cool on paper, but sadly in practice, it's incredibly useless. This is just way too much speed to be usable from this spot on the map. And there's one more thing these signs let you do. Oh yeah. Oh my god! If you get a player stuck in the sign with the airstrike, and then you get another player to heal them with the quick fix, that player's rockets will apply knockback to the medic. And because of the super high attack speed on the airstrike, you can give your medic like 4 rockets worth of speed in a really short time and send them absolutely flying. Most of the signs on this map don't really make too good use of this tech, but this sign right here is perfect for it on blue team. If the medic beams the soldier and then stands all the way back in this corner, they can jump right before the soldier starts firing, and they can ramp slide all the way up these tracks and get launched across the map. Strafing left with this much speed is very difficult, so you need to slam into this wall before you start turning, or else this strafe is basically completely impossible. Another really clever trick is to use the overdose. The overdose gives you extra movement speed while you hold it based on your uber charge. So with 100% uber, you walk at the same speed as a scout. And if you didn't know, the walk speed of your character affects how fast you can strafe. A heavy has to turn his mouse quite slowly to gain speed while strafing. If you turn your mouse even a little bit too fast, you'll start losing speed instead of gaining it. But a faster class, like a scout, can turn their mouse way faster before they begin to lose speed. Without the overdose, hitting a ramp slide on this cliff here is possible, but it's extremely difficult. But with the overdose, it's almost trivial, and this allows you to strafe super far into the enemy team to get a crazy kill. Okay, that one was crazy.
Oh my god.
That one was fucking
crazy.
that
was
beautiful.
Yeah, that one was sick. These signs have more potential too. A stock launch off this sign could hit some pretty hilarious clips, but I didn't actually go for that because I've shown 1 billion stock launches on this channel, and I'm in rehab for my crippling stock launch addiction anyway, so someone else will have to do that on my behalf with these signs because my doctor tells me I gotta stay away from the stock launches, you know? So if you thought launching across the map was crazy, this one is 10 times more absurd than that. This is called a Seamshot. It's a bug in the Source engine that allows you to shoot straight through walls. Check this spot out right here. If I aim at the exact right spot, right at the edge of this beam where these two walls meet, my sniper dot will visibly disappear into the wall. And if I fire a bullet, you can see it go through the wall onto the other side. This green line is the path my bullet took when I fired it. There's no gap in the wall here. If I open up Hammer Editor and go to this part of the map, you can see quite clearly these two walls are touching with no gap in between. But because of a funny Source engine bug, the game is incorrectly calculating the bullet collision of this wall, which creates a tiny gap in the collision despite there not actually being a gap in the wall itself. If that sounded super complicated, well that's because it is. But if you want to get to the nitty-gritty details of it, there's a great video explaining it in detail made by KurzyHow that I've linked down in the description. But this allows you to get kills that really do just make you look like you're cheating. I killed a guy instantly. I got one immediately. That was the first shot I fired. Oh! I got you!
That wasn't even like me being a paid actor either. I was just chilling.
Was it actually?
Like you have an
Yeah, I was just walking around.
Although a lot of the time, you wouldn't actually kill the guy. You'd sort of just make them really confused.
There again.
I'm kind of just... Oh, I got someone.
You hit him, yeah.
I got his.
He's 32 health. He doesn't know what's going on. He just walked back into spawn.
So yeah, if you happen to see some psychopath sniper randomly staring at a wall for 5 minutes, he could be a free-to-play who installed the game 15 minutes ago. Or he could be a 10,000-hour gigabrain hitting the lineup of the Sentry that you just couldn't possibly imagine.
Just trying to vibe.
Oh, I got him! I was aiming with Swag's cam. That's crazy. He types how.
His name Nostradamus, and he still couldn't figure that one out.
The gaps in collision that you're firing through are incredibly small, but bullets in the Source engine are calculated with rays, infinitely thin lines that are drawn from the player firing the bullet directly to what they're aiming at. So because rays are infinitely thin, they can go through any gap of any size as long as you get the lineup right. Bullets from hitscan weapons like snipers and shotguns are all rays, and they will go through the gap. Splash damage from explosions is also calculated with rays, so the rocket itself is too big to go through the wall, but the splash damage from that rocket can go through and damage people on the other side. And certain types of taunt kills can also go through the wall. All of these taunt kills work by casting a ray in the exact same way as a sniper bullet works, but that ray is just very short ranged. But if the wall is thin enough, your taunt can go through the seam shot and hit people on the other side. And the taunt on Heavy's fists has the added benefit of having way more range than a normal taunt kill. So the Pootis POW is perfect for trying to kill people through seam shots. Well, in theory, anyway. In practice, doing this is unbelievably hard. See, these gaps are extraordinarily small, but when you do the lineup on Sniper, you can see your sniper dot go through the wall when it's working. So you can sort of just aim at the wall roughly at the right angle until your dot goes through. But when you're trying to do this with taunt kills, you have no visual feedback whatsoever. All you have to rely on is this. The command CLShowPos1 will show you your coordinates. So you have to get the lineup on Sniper, screenshot this part of your screen, then switch to Heavy and get the lineup just right so that you can taunt through the wall. Fortunately, you only have to worry about your horizontal position and horizontal aim. So you're only really looking at these two numbers. But even with that, if you do it slightly wrong, you have no actual way to know if it's working or not. You just have to rely solely on your coordinates and your instinct. And even when you get the lineup just right, you need someone to not shoot you and slightly nudge you. Or you need your teammates to not walk into you, pushing you around. And most importantly of all, you still need a guy to perfectly walk in front of this exact spot at the exact right moment so that you can taunt kill them. As you can imagine, this can take quite a long time. I've been Pootis powering here for about 4 years. My dog's really mad about it. He's like really mad about how long I've been Pootis. I haven't fed him, so. I did this for hours. Days, even. If you played Uncle Topia a few weeks ago and saw a Heavy just like staring at a wall for 15 minutes straight constantly, yeah, hello, that was me. Sorry about that. But after enough time spent, eventually... There's a guy there, I can see his shadow through the wall. Let me kill him. Oh! Oh, fucking God! Yes! This might just be the best taunt kill ever hit. Like ever in the history of the video game. Now, Seamshots exist on more maps than just Upward. Upward just happens to have quite a lot of them, and they're all relatively useful. But if you want to go out of your way and find Seamshots yourself on other maps, I've got some tips for you. This bug only occurs when a wall that's aligned perfectly to the grid meets a wall that has some sort of diagonal part attached. So this setup here is a great example. You have a wall that's aligned with the grid, then this wall is diagonal along the grid. So where these walls meet, there's a seam shot. As long as your aim on your coordinates is aiming at 90-degree angles on the grid, aiming at random corners in geometry for long enough lets you shoot through a ton of different spots. But the diagonal part of the wall doesn't actually have to be the part you're firing through. The brush just needs to have a diagonal part somewhere on it. So a setup like this would work perfectly fine for a seam shot. This brush has a diagonal on it, even if that's not the part we're actually firing through. So there are many more seam shots out there that are hiding in plain sight, way more difficult to find than these ones. Like, check this one out. Behind this box on last, you can fire through these two brushes into this room. The diagonal part of this brush is not visible anywhere because it's outside the map, but it is there. This makes for a bunch of seam shots that are basically invisible to the naked eye. But fortunately, someone created a solution to that problem. There's a tool called the Seam Shot Calculator that I've linked down in the description. If you put in a map file, it will generate a config that you can run that allows you to scroll through every single possible seam shot on the entire map. Every one of these red lines is a gap that you could potentially fire through. Most of these red lines are useless to us, like they're on geometry outside the map, or they're on random bits of wooden scenery somewhere. Or you can shoot through the seam, but there's another wall or prop or something on the inside of the wall that you're firing through that the bullet will collide with before it can make it all the way. But occasionally, this tool will show you a seam shot that is totally usable and allows you to do some totally ridiculous things. Learning about this was kind of like learning that we live in a simulation or something. It's like, what do you mean you can just shoot through walls if you look at them in the right way? Like, I've been playing the game for 18 years. What do you mean? A Wallbug is a source engine glitch that allows you to sort of stick to certain walls in the map. This works on any wall that's not aligned with the grid, similar to the walls we were talking about earlier in the seam shot example. So these diagonal walls, for example, can be stuck to by wiggling into the wall slightly. But Wallbugs let you do some very funny things, like stopping your fall damage, or hovering in the air above unsuspecting players, or just seeing over walls that you shouldn't be able to peek over. There's quite a few Wallbugs on Upward that are very well known. Most notably is these two here. These fences have clip brushes extending all the way up to the skybox. Big invisible walls that you can't see and you can't pass through. And because they're diagonal against the grid, aligned with the fence, you can wallbug on them to shoot over the wall, which leads to hilarious clips like these. Oh yeah, shot a guy! And Upward has a lot of what you might call invisible wallbugs. Wallbugs on invisible walls that have no good visual cue that they're even there. Take this fence, for example. This fence has a giant clip brush around it, way bigger than you would expect just by looking at the fence. And this clip brush extends all the way up to the skybox. So anywhere that's directly above this fence can be wallbugged on at any height. And these fences are everywhere on Upward. And if you thought those were crazy, check this one out. This one's just a random invisible wall outside the map. There is literally nothing here. No fence, no nothing, but you can wallbug on this entire surface. But the placement of these wallbugs makes them a little bit tricky to actually use for anything. See, if you're a class that can actually get up there, like Soldier or Demo Man, you don't really have the effective range to actually do anything from up here. But what if you could get up here? Not as Demo or Soldier, but as Sniper. Sniper can't rocket jump, but as it turns out, with the help of a friend, you can get up here just fine. The force of nature launches you incredibly high. So all you have to do is recruit one of your friends, crouch on top of their head when they're playing Scout, and they can blast you into any wall bug on the entire map. Holy shit. But if I move my mouse, I'm gonna fall. At first, we started with the super simple wallbugs. You know, the ones everyone knows about. But then we got a bit more crazy with it.
Lowering your sentry sound funny.
I got one. Just speedrun it, just speedrun it. Go, 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 go. Boom. He hit me instead of you. No. Oh, shit. Go, go, go.
Oh, it's not good.
The holy grail of Wallbug sightlines is this fence right here. You can get a Wallbug that allows you to see all the way across this enormous sightline right to where blue team congregates to try and push last. And the things you can do from up here are unbelievable. It's fucking awesome.
With symptoms.
Oh, I got the same guy again. I got the same guy a second time. But there is one problem with sniper Wallbugs. And if you know anything about Wallbugs, you've probably been screaming at your monitor the entire time I've been talking. The problem with sniper Wallbugs is actually aiming at people whilst you're up here. See, when you're in a Wallbug, any mouse movement that you do will get you unstuck from your Wallbug. And you have to try and get restuck with your movement keys before you completely fall to the ground. So every single sniper kill from a Wallbug has to be a flick onto the guy's head, otherwise you're never gonna kill anyone. Unless, of course, you get really lucky. Blowing that guy's mind. Oh, I didn't even move. Yeah. Now, there's one other thing that these Wallbugs allow you to do, and that's shooting into the blue team's spawn during setup time. And speaking of which, the first blue team spawn on Upward is really, really stupid. This entire left side has a giant hole in it. This means players can shoot into the spawn during setup time. On super old versions of Upward, you could actually jump around this house and land on the cliff right next to blue spawn, which is just completely insane. But even without crazy stuff like that, you can still shoot into the spawn room in a variety of different ways. You can arc stickies over the fence so that they land in the spawn and then det when someone walks past. You can rocket jump to peek over the fence and shoot inside. And you can even Wallbug on this fence and just shoot straight into the spawn room. But there's another, even more powerful way to shoot into blue spawn. And that's from these stairs down here. If you stand all the way on the edge of this corner right here and look towards the spawn, you'll notice that your view is blocked by this cliff and this big rock. But the rock has no collision, so you can fire directly through it into the enemy spawn anyway. You can't actually see what you're firing at, but with a little bit of practice, this is incredibly easy to do. I hit him. Now, this is funny and all, but shooting some poor chungus through this rock with a crit rocket while they're just stood AFK in spawn isn't exactly hitting a clip, now is it? So I devised a funny plan to get a kill with this trick that's actually like, you know, cool. And the plan looked something like this. A drop shot fired completely blind because of this rock obstructing my vision. This took me quite a few attempts, and with enough time spent, eventually...
Oh my god.
It's beautiful, it's incredible. What a beautiful clip. It was on someone who I was in VC with. I killed someone I was talking to, so all of my YouTube comments are gonna say that they're a paid actor and say that the clip's not real. So I went and did it again.
Medics over there? Yeah, nice.
Oh! Oh my god! So this part is just going to be a quick fire round of all of the funny things about Upward that I can think of that aren't large enough to put in their own segment. If I miss any, let me know in the comments. There's a bunch of spots where you can taunt kill people through the floor with the Equalizer and the escape plan. When you're in a spot with a thin ceiling above your head that forces you to crouch, your player model clips through the floor and the explosion spawns at the top of your right hand, killing people on the other side and keeping you safe. I usually wouldn't bring this up in a map specific video, but Upward has quite a few of these that are all really funny, so I thought I'd bring it up anyway. My favorite spot for this is on these beams under these stairs. This spot is a little bit tough to get to, but it's very unpredictable, so no one's gonna think you're down here. There's also one on these boxes that kills players through the ceiling here, and there's one on these boxes near the full health pack that kills people on the floor above. In fact, there's too many to go over on this map, to be honest. Basically every staircase you can stand under has one. Go experiment for yourself to to find some more. There's a lot of rocks and wooden beams and stuff on Upward that have no collision, because if they did have collision, walking into them would be like really annoying. So the mapper turned that off. But this means you can hide sticky bombs inside of those rocks and beams. And these rocks are everywhere. There's also this one wooden beam here that has no collision. And there's a really evil mini sentry spot that allows your gun to shoot people through this bit of wood. And the enemy on the other side can't easily see where they're being shot from. You can build on top of this doorway thing as engineer. Build a dispenser on the tallest part of this hill and jump on top of it to then jump to place a teleporter up there. Then teleport to it and build a little sentry nest. This sentry spot isn't actually good against people with brains, but a wrangled sentry gun up here in casual is basically unkillable. You can shoot through this staircase in front of Red's first spawn, which means you can also taunt kill people through it, and this is thin enough that you can even backstab people through it as spy, which is pretty cool. There's also a few spots where you can resupply through the ceiling using what's called a head bug. If you jump into a ceiling, then press crouch shortly after you hit your head, your bounding box will slightly poke through the ceiling for a split second. You can do it in this spot here as red team, and this spot here as both teams at certain points in the game. Now is for the funny places to stand montage. Some of these are good hiding spots, some of them are good sniper sightlines, and some of them are completely pointless. I'm bound to miss a few here, so let me know in the comments, but here are the ones I can think of. Now this one here is impossible to get into just by looking at it, because you're not actually stood on this rock. If you stand on this rock, you die instantly. So here's a short tutorial. You want to walk off the cliff and tap and release S to go down the cliff face really slowly. And you want to look for this little corner part right here, and you want to be slightly to the left of it. Go down as slow as possible and get as close to the rock as you can without actually touching it. And eventually, while you're holding S, you will stop sliding and start standing on the side of the cliff. I learned about this spot from a video by a guy called You should check him out, he has some cool videos. Anyway, back to the rest of the spots. Hey you. You want to see something cool? Check this out. Impressive, right? Don't even answer that. I know you're impressed. The way you pull this off, it's very simple. All you have to do is bind your scroll wheel to walk forward by typing this into your console. It's pretty cool, right? I mean, I guess it is pretty much completely useless. It doesn't really achieve anything, right? But it's not completely useless. It's really useful for helping you get stuck in these doors on Swiftwater, so that you can do some of the funny stuff mentioned at this timestamp here. Today, I thought I'd show off some of the least useful TF2 tech that I can possibly think of. From climbing upstairs really fast, to breaking your reloads on your weapons, and even taking mysterious fall damage without falling from any height at all. But first, why don't we go for a swim? Because I need to show you something. That didn't look like much, did it? But trust me, I just used some super mysterious tech right there. Seriously, look at how much height I gain with this tech compared to how much height I gain without it. It's subtle, but it's there. As far as I'm aware, there's not really a name for this tech other than just calling it water tech, which is a little bit uninspired, really. But to pull off the water tech, you actually need to hit 3 tick-perfect inputs in a row. That's 3 inputs, all within a 66th of a second of each other. Press jump on one tick, then crouch on the next tick, and then shoot a rocket on the final tick. Doing this is incredibly precise, but if you do it right, you will gain more height from your rocket jump than if you just didn't use the tech at all. And you might be thinking to yourself that that doesn't sound useless at all. You gain more height from your rockets, but oh no, trust me, it's useless. Because you can't just do this in any body of water. This tech only works when the water is at a pretty specific depth. The water needs to be deep enough for your character to be able to swim when they hold space, but shallow enough to where if they don't hold space, their feet touch the floor and their head sticks out of the water. And on actual vanilla TF2 maps, I cannot think of a single spot in the entire game where you can actually make good use out of the extra height you gain from this tech. There's some spots on maps where the tech does work, like this spot on Pier, which has the right water depth in certain places. But where am I even gonna go with my extra bit of distance? If I'm gonna use the water at all, I would just stand in it and rocket jump. Since if you didn't know, rocket jumping whilst standing in water sends you further for sauce spaghetti reasons that I won't get into just now. The only place where this water tech has found any use at all is in jump maps, where speedrunners will use it in certain places to go faster than the competition. For example, the second to last jump on Jump Gaylord. Yes, the map's called Jump Gaylord. No, it's not funny. Anyway, on this jump, the world record speedrun sinks 3 rockets in the water to do a water tech and fly to the end of the jump. And without the water tech, sinking 3 rockets like this just doesn't give you enough height. And the intended strategy for the jump is a lot slower and does some pre-fire shenanigans on this ramp. But outside of niche uses in jump maps, the water tech is well and truly useless. But if you want something that literally serves no purpose whatsoever under any circumstance, then take a look at this. This is Pootis, and Pootis is A-posing. You know, you've probably heard of this one, right? I don't have to explain this one to you. Most people know that this exists, but it's such a well-known thing that is so completely and utterly pointless that I thought I had to mention it in a video like this. You can do this as all of the 9 classes, but I'm not going to go over how to do it on every class. Instead, I'll just tell you how to do it as heavy. All you have to do is hold left click until you have 0 ammo in your minigun. Then keep holding left click and pick up a dropped minigun off the floor. You are now the funny Pootis. I know this is incredibly well known, but in a video about useless TF2 tech, it felt like I just had to mention it. If you were looking for something that you've literally never heard of, then take a look at this. This is weird, right? In fact, this one's so weird that I don't even know why it works. The only reason I can come up with is that there's a ghost in my computer, like, haunting my reload or something. If you have auto reload on and you fire your weapon automatically reloads the moment it's able to. But if you hold right click, the auto reload will just pause. And this works on most weapons, even ones that actually do something when you press right click, like the sticky bomb launcher. Your reload will be frozen so long as you're holding the right mouse button. But with rocket launchers in particular, it gets even weirder. If you wait for the reload animation to start and then press right click and then left click slightly afterwards, your weapon will do this, which is incredibly strange. Also, you know how your weapon like bobs up and down in front of you when you're stood idle? Like as if the soldier's breathing and the rocket launcher rocks back and forth? Well, if you press right click at any point, releasing right click will make the animation break slightly and go back to the beginning of its loop. It's really quite hard to spot, but it is there. And as far as I'm aware, this works on every weapon in the entire game. And I actually don't know why this happens. And to be honest, I'm not sure I want to find out. It feels like if I found out how this worked, the Source Engine gods would like put a curse on my entire bloodline or something. So I'm not even going to try and find out how this works. I'm just going to leave well enough alone and say that TF2's haunted. But a big thanks to your boy Flash Money for actually pointing this bug out to me. There's a link to his video about it in the description. But for my next tech I want to demonstrate, I ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to break your legs? You know, it's a lot of effort to have to, like, run all the way up this cliff just to jump off it and break my legs. If only there was, like, an easier way. Well, it must be your lucky day, because if you go into this spot in Badwater Blue Spawn and you hold W and jump crouch into this corner just right, your character will briefly get stuck. And then after a little while, you will fly into the ground super fast and take a bunch of fall damage. This tech has many names, but if you're a fan of Portal 2 speedrunning, then you've probably heard of it being called a stuck launch. These two techs are exactly the same thing, and if you take a look at my velocity number in the top right of my screen, you might see what's happening here. I jump into this spot and I get stuck, but the game thinks I'm falling, and it thinks I'm falling very fast. So the game gives me lots of downwards velocity despite the fact that I'm not moving. And by the time the game manages to get me unstuck, I had thousands of hammer units per second of velocity aiming directly at the floor. So now I can conveniently break my legs and die in the comfort of my own spawn room. Thanks, Valve. But now we're running out of completely useless things to talk about, so we're gonna have to settle for, you know, almost completely useless. Like this. This is a flare jump. Usually you need the detonator or the scorch shot to be able to explosive jump as Pyro, but you can also do it with the flare gun. It's just really, really hard to do, and it sends you such a small distance that it's almost completely pointless. Back in ye olden days of Team Fortress 2, you used to be able to fire flares through thin walls by getting really close to the wall and aiming at a funny angle. Doing this would spawn the flare inside the wall when you fired it, and it would continue traveling through the wall onto the other side. When Valve patched this out, they inadvertently added a brand new bug into the game. Now, if you're too close to a wall like this and you fire a flare, the flare will spawn inside the wall and immediately explode. And that little explosion can only damage the player that fired the flare. But this now enables you to do little baby flare jumps. But the distance you get from the explosion is so small that there's only a handful of places in the entire game that you can actually use this to gain an advantage. And that's not even to mention that not every wall produces an explosion when fired at. It only works on brushes and displacements, which is Hammer Editor nerd talk for things like these. Anything that's a prop with some sort of 3D model, like a barrel or a car or something, won't work. And anything that has an invisible wall or clip brush won't work either, because the flare can pass through the tiny wall, but the player can't. It also won't work on walls that are diagonal to the grid either, because TF2's player collision is handled by a bounding box that never rotates. So if the corner of your bounding box is what's contacting the wall, then that puts you too far away from the wall to be able to fire the flare inside of it. So all of this results in a tech that is incredibly hard to do and can only be used in a small handful of spots in just a few vanilla maps. I want to just show one last thing that is incredibly hard to pull off effectively and has almost no practical use cases in the entirety of vanilla TF2. Meet the glide step. Performing a single glide step is very precise, but simple in concept. You jump up a ledge while crouched, then you release crouch and press jump on the exact same tick. You then crouch again and repeat this over and over to very quickly ascend a staircase that would usually take about 5 minutes to repeatedly crouch jump up. This is incredibly precise and hard to do, and also incredibly useless. Not only is the timing really hard to get right, but it also only works on very specific ledge heights. If the ledge is too tall, it doesn't give you enough time to uncrouch. And if the ledge isn't tall enough, then your uncrouch won't immediately put your feet on the ground, so you can't instantly jump. But if the ledge is just the right height, you can plant your feet and instantly jump off again to save some time on your movement. This has pretty much no practical uses in a real game of TF2, but at least on the plus side, it looks really funny when you speed it up. That was my compilation of the most useless TF2 tech that I could possibly come up with, ranging from incredibly niche use cases to completely and utterly useless garbage that has no purpose whatsoever, other than perhaps maybe being funny. If I asked you what the best melee class in TF2 was, you'd probably say it's one of these two guys, right? This guy kills people instantly with backstabs, and this guy can, like, well, you know. But what if I told you that the best melee class isn't one of these two? It's actually this idiot.
Ah, hell.
The engineer can literally one-shot light classes with his melee weapon. That's it. And all it takes is a little bit of sauce spaghetti. When Engineer picks up his buildings to move them, he can actually store a melee swing. If you press right click and left click at the exact same time, you'll pick up your building, and if you did it right, a weird phantom melee swing animation will appear on your screen. If after that, you then place down your building, but hold left click while doing it, you can release that stored melee swing to swing twice in the space of one melee attack. There's only one melee animation playing, but I'm throwing out 2 melee attack hitboxes. Now the timing on this is pretty tight, but fortunately, you don't actually have to do the timing. If you just put this in a config somewhere and then bind it to a button, and now if you press that button to pick up your building, holding left click to place it down again will give you 2 melee swings. Now the lawful good way to use this is to move your buildings around slightly faster. Swinging that extra melee swing at a building makes it rebuild about 0.1 seconds faster. But that's like boring. boring. No one cares about that. The really funny thing to do with this is to blow people's brains out, obviously. The Gunslinger is the obvious pairing for this because it has a combo attack feature that gives you a guaranteed crit on every third swing. And this tech makes that third swing come out a whole lot sooner. And literally one-shotting light classes is also comedy gold. And it can also make for some really cool clips.
That was a flash attack.
Oh, I got it! I don't think too hard about how many attempts that took to get right. Just don't, you know, just don't think about that. My first melee hit the fuck. Also, don't do this bug in ETF2L or RGL Highlander because you will get permanently banned because it's cheating. Don't do that. Just don't. Sadly, I can't actually find any sources for why this bug happens. But the next thing I want to talk about doesn't really require that much explaining. And it's something that you've all probably heard of. It's called a telesync. It's something that you see a lot of in jump maps. Jump maps teleport you back to the start when you fail a jump. So you can jump outwards, fire a rocket at the start of the jump, you can sync with that rocket to go really fast. Everyone seems to think that this is jump map only tech. But honestly, I just think all of you weren't thinking big enough. Oh, shit. Engineer has been able to teleport you the whole time. It's been in the game the whole... This, unsurprisingly, requires the help of a friend. But it's actually not even that hard to do. The hardest part is having your friend's teleporter not get destroyed literally immediately. I also will admit that I stole this idea from a player called Herb, who hits a tele triple in a real match to just absolutely shit on this poor medic player. I'll link his video in the description. Now, there is another way to telesync in a real match that you might not have thought of, and that's on servers with instant respawns. You can pre-fire a spawn door, press a kill bind, then sync off of the rocket as it comes towards you. I got this idea from a new pastime game mode called P-Ball. It's pastime, but soldiers only, 2v2, with instant respawns and no lock-ons. In this mode, telesyncing with kill binds is actually incredibly powerful, and it lets you do some really cool stuff. But if this is a bit too niche for you, that's fair enough, because there's also Higher Tower. You know that one map where the tower goes like all the way up into space or whatever? If you get to the top, fire 2 rockets downward, then kill bind, you can run out of your spawn and catch the 2 rockets at the bottom to sync up into the sky for a crazy clip. Yes, I know I did miss the market garden. Thank you for noticing. But listen, alright, I sat here for an hour doing this and I got like 7 attempts out of that hour because most of the time was just spent climbing the stupid tower. Also, if you think about this for like more than 4 seconds, you realize it's insanely pointless because you could just like jump off high and then triple normally like a normal person. But we all know that's just not as cool. Sadly, when servers say they have instant respawns, their respawns aren't actually instant. There's still like 2 or 3 seconds of staring at your limp, lifeless corpse before they put you back in the game. Which sucks, because it really limits how many maps that you can realistically do this on. But it is possible, you just need to be creative enough. But for the next one, we're gonna have to get a little bit dumber and a little bit more pointless. Look at these 4 blocks. The first block is 70 hammer units tall. The next 71, then 72, then 73. A hammer unit is just a unit of distance in the hammer editor, the map making tool that people use for TF2. And a hammer unit is incredibly small, but a block that's 70 units tall can be jump crouched on top of. But just 1 unit taller than that, and suddenly pressing jump then crouch doesn't work. This block is just a tiny bit too tall. But because TF2 is really old and stupid and dumb, jumping then crouching doesn't get me up here. But if I press crouch first and then press jump, suddenly I can make it on top of this block just fine. Same with the 72 unit block. I can crouch jump up here, but I can't jump crouch up here. This might seem weird, but there is an explanation to this. When TF2 calculates your jump height, it does it with a formula that looks like this. But when you crouch, then jump in the middle of your crouch animation, the game forgets this part. And this is seemingly just because of a coding error. So a regular jump gives you 271 units a second of upwards velocity, but a crouch jump, ignoring gravity for some reason, gives you 277 units of upwards velocity. And in-game, this equates to 2 hammer units of extra jump height. If you want real in-game examples of this, then look at the payload cart on Badwater. If I jump crouch, I can't get on top of the cart whatsoever, but if I crouch jump, I make it just fine. And there's also one here on CP Sunshine. You can jump up up these boiler things, then crouch jump onto this beam. A regular jump crouch can climb all the way up the boilers, but it can't make the final jump. But back to these blocks. There's a fourth block here that we haven't talked about. This block is 73 hammer units tall. A regular jump crouch can't make this jump, but a crouch jump can't make it either. It's just a tiny bit too high. But there is a way to make this jump, and it's really stupid. The way you make this jump is by doing a tick perfect B hop, then a tick perfect crouch jump B hop immediately afterwards. If you do it perfectly, you get one single unit of extra jump height off the ground. And this is like, it's like really dumb. Like, I don't know how anyone even figured this out. And the reason why this works is it's just incredibly stupid. In TF2 and most other Source games, every single surface has what's called a surface extension, a tiny invisible barrier between you and that surface that extends out just 2 hammer units further than the actual surface itself. Originally, this was to prevent people in older Source games getting stuck in geometry because of floating point errors. But now, with our modern computers, this isn't really a problem anymore. But the surface extension is still in the game. The floor also has a surface extension that you're pretty much constantly stood on top of. During regular gameplay, after jumping, you're about 0.7 hammer units off of the ground, standing on this surface extension. This 0.7 number is just pure coincidence, based on the speed and height of a normal jump. But you can manipulate your jumps in order to stand a little bit higher on that surface extension. If you do a tick perfect B hop, jumping at the exact time you hit the ground, you will then land 1.4 units above the ground on this surface extension. Then a crouch jump B hop immediately after that allows you to crouch jump from 1.4 units elevated off the ground. This gives you a jump that's roughly 0.7 units higher than normal. This is only a tiny difference in height, but it's enough to allow you to crouch jump 73 units into the air. Now, I only know of one single place that you can actually use this tech in a real TF2 match, and that's on PL Swiftwater. You can stand on this computer and do a 73 unit jump to climb up onto this ledge that you're not meant to be able to reach. But outside of this one very specific use case, the only place you're likely to see a 73 unit jump is on a KZ map. These maps are essentially parkour maps, and every now and then they'll feature a 73 unit jump that forces you to learn this super niche tech. Now, speaking of parkour maps, I have one last, incredibly pointless piece of tech to show you. Look at this gap on PL Pier. If I'm playing Medic or Spy, this gap is too big to jump at in a straight line. The jump's just too far. But it's relatively easy to wiggle strafe to gain enough speed to cross this gap. But what if I told you that you actually can cross this gap while jumping in a perfectly straight line? This is called wall strafing, because despite my mouse barely moving at all, I'm actually gaining speed in the air while I do this jump. So how do I do it? Well, the important part is this wall here. First, you have to aim your mouse almost directly forwards, but angled a teeny tiny bit towards the left. Then, start walking and crouch jump off the ledge. Make sure to crouch jump and not jump crouch due to the height difference that we talked about earlier. After jumping off the ledge, immediately let go of W and start holding A. As you do this, aim your mouse a very, very tiny amount to the right. If you do this correctly, you will start gaining a bit of speed in the air. The mouse movement is the tricky part. If you move your mouse too much or not enough, then you don't gain any speed. And if your mouse movement isn't perfect, you will gain speed, but not the maximum amount of speed that you can possibly gain from a wall strafe. This tech is like 99.9% useless, but it does let you cross some gaps in some interesting ways. The real use case for it, again, is in KZ servers. Like, check out this jump on Climb Luzon. This ramp I'm stood on is a pixel walk, meaning that you can't just stand on it like a normal ledge. You have to wiggle into the wall a little bit to be able to stand here. I talk more about pixel walks at this timestamp. You need to jump from one pixel walk ramp to another. Wiggle strafing this is completely impossible. You cannot get this much distance in a single jump while also staying inside the wall enough to land on the ramp at the other side. This is only possible with a wall strafe. But as far as I'm aware, there's no spots like this in real TF2 maps. So the tech isn't exactly useful. But we're all super ultra mega nerds here anyway, so I know you found it interesting. I just know you did. October has arrived and Scream Fortress has arrived with it. And as we all know, TF2's a buggy mess, and Scream Fortress, it ain't no different. So I'm here to show you my favorite Halloween-themed source engine jank that you can use to hit a clip on some poor little chungus who's just trying to do their contracts this year. So let's get to it. This Scream Fortress update added a whole bunch of new maps. Now I have nothing to say about most of them, but I have a lot to say about one of them. Kothdusker is the best map from this update. This map is simple, fun to play, and it looks really good. But the people who made this map made a couple of oopsies when the map first released. Oopsies that let you, well, you know. This map was a little bit broken on release. Now, for most people, something like this makes them enjoy the map less, but to freaks like me, oh, this isn't a bad thing. This is just the icing on the cake. See, off of this cliff is a hurt trigger, a big invisible box outside the map that deals a bunch of damage to you when you touch it. And these triggers are on basically every map you've ever played. And on this map, this hurt trigger is huge, because the amount of physically accessible space off of this cliff is enormous. But all the way at the bottom of the cliff, all the way in the left corner, right up against this invisible wall at the back of the map, there's a little patch of floor that wasn't quite covered by the hurt trigger. So if you could get over there, you could stand here completely safely. Now, if you walked slightly too far forward or slightly too far to the left, you'd die instantly. But just in this tiny corner, everything was completely safe. And if you could get here as engineer, you could build teleporters out here. As Engie, you can use the Wrangler to jump out here. It's pretty far, and you need to be pretty good at Wrangler jumping, but it's very doable if you have a medic to overheal you. But there's a second, much easier method of doing this. And it's as simple as that. Now, once we found this, we wanted to do something interesting with it. Just building a telly out here and laugh taunting people as they die is all well and good, but it's pretty unoriginal. We wanted something bigger, and fortunately, Dusker had just the thing. See, there's these cliffs all around the blue side of the map, and this tiny little spot right here could be stood on. There's invisible walls all around this area, but they don't quite stop you from standing just on this tiny part that sticks out. And this cliff is made out of Displacement, a tool that map makers use to make natural looking geometry. And if you've watched my other videos, you'll know that displacements like this allow you to get stuck inside of them. The top part of this displacement is exposed. From one side of the displacement you see a cliff, but from the other side it's invisible. Displacements only have collision from the side that they're visible from. And since the top of this displacement's exposed, all you have to do is crouch walk around side to side and you'll get stuck in the displacement eventually. Now, when you get stuck in TF2, you can do a lot of wonderful things. Most notably for us is you can trick the game into thinking you have a ton of velocity while not actually moving anywhere. And as if the stars were aligning, this displacement stuck spot is right in line with the teleporter that we built out of bounds earlier. So we came up with a devious idea. We use a demo man to launch an engineer out of bounds, so he can build a teleporter all the way in this corner. Then the demo man swaps to Pyro, and this medic player swaps to Soldier with the rocket jumper. The Soldier does this tricky rocket jump to get on this cliff edge spot, and then he gets stuck in the wall. Then the Soldier fires a rocket at the Pyro so he can reflect jump onto the Soldier's head. Then the Pyro aims diagonally down, sort of like this, directly above the teleporter, and air blasts the Soldier a bunch of times. This gives the Soldier a massive amount of potential energy. Then when people take the teleporter, the Pyro walks forwards to launch directly towards the player. So you can do something that looks a little bit like this. You're actually traveling so fast as the Pyro player that if you have a stomp effect, you can actually just instantly kill people the moment you land on them. When we first set this up, our server was completely empty. So we just set the trap, then stood here waiting around for like half an hour until a bunch of people started joining our server.
Wait.
Oh, people are joining, people are joining, people are joining, people are joining.
It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Go, 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 go. Yes! Woohoo! That's what we waited 20 minutes for, baby! These clips are so cool. They have so many moving parts and so many stars have to align for a clip like this to even be possible. But unfortunately, just as I was becoming attached to my beautiful clip, my fun was about to come to an end. See, I saw this tweet from Dave Newblood the Newblood guy, and I'd been playing the map he was talking about all day. So I thought it would be neat to show off the cool tech I found, you know, no biggie. I just posted a video of the clips we'd hit that day. But then, disaster struck. The cops are here, they've arrived. Everyone run, hide the tech, hide the jugs. Quick, don't let them see it, don't They found it. I tried my hardest to reason with them, I really did, but like they just weren't listening, you know? So later that day, while we were in the middle of trying to hit another clip using this stuck spot, it finally happened.
Aww.
Oh man.
Make a tweet. Make a tweet.
Fuck!
Fix displacement.
Why did I have to tweet about it? I'm so
Fix
dumb.
spreads.
I'm so.
Fix
Did
it
they
for the
fix
build
the
in
stuck
the
spot? No, they didn't fix the stuck.
No. Please.
No, they fixed it. No, they fucking no. They fixed the whole thing. They fixed the whole jug. No, why did I have to tweet? Why did I fucking tweet? What am I doing?
You really wanted that cloud for finding a funny thing, huh?
I did this to myself. I jugged too close to the sun and I was punished for it. But fortunately, there was another glitch that I didn't post about on Twitter. One that's far more problematic than just owning someone off the edge of this cliff. See, when mappers make spawn rooms, they make this big trigger inside of the spawn called a Funk Respawn Room. This is the trigger that allows you to change classes and loadouts at will when you're in spawn. And one of the most important features of a respawn room trigger is that it stops engineers from building stuff while they're inside of it. But on Koth Dusker, in the red respawn room, the spawn room trigger doesn't quite extend all the way to the ceiling, so you can build teleporters up here. An engineer can reach this quite easily with the Wrangler. You build a level 3 sentry outside of the spawn, then you shoot your Wrangler rocket into your own spawn and use it to rocket jump up there. But it actually gets way worse than that, because the spawn room trigger doesn't extend all the way to the back of the spawn room either, so you can just place a telly right here with no skill or brain cells required. Now, I went into a game for a little while to do this, and it was kind of funny. I just sat in the ceiling taking pot shots at people. When the enemy team caught on, they started camping the teleporter and something pretty magnificent happened. I telefragged someone up here. That's so good. That's the best clip of all time. Now, this was funny for like one game, but to cut a long story short, I actually went and reported this one to the mapper. And at the time of this video releasing, this has been fixed on live servers. Now, I know some of you are going to call me a killjoy in the comments, but let me just let you in on a little secret. I love TF2 tech. It's the best part of TF2. But there's two types of tech, if you can even call it that I've always hated. And that's building sentry guns inside of walls where they can't be damaged by enemies, and there's glitches that let you get into the enemy spawn room. I've never liked these glitches. They're always far more evil than they are interesting. The main use case for using a glitch like this isn't to hit some fancy clip that everyone thinks is awesome, it's to ruin the game for everybody else. Like, go and Google TF2 teleporter in spawn exploit and try and find me a single video that isn't someone just completely preventing half the enemy team from playing the game at all. So maybe I'm a killjoy, but I think the game would benefit from one less map that lets you go into the enemy spawn and spawn camp people. Feel free to argue with me in the comments, because I'd genuinely be curious to hear your thoughts on it. Now, as for the other thing that got patched, listen, that's on me, alright? I know there's a chance that the mappers are watching this video, but I'll just come out and say it. I wouldn't have reported this one on purpose. I really wouldn't. I'm sorry. I miss it so much. Look at how cool this clip is. What if you like patched it back in, you know? What? Halloween spells have been in the game for over a decade, and usually they just tend to make the Halloween maps, like, you know, even more of a clusterfuck than they already are. This game's so bad. I'm dead. That kills me. But some of the spells have got some really interesting tech to them. Let's start simple. The Pumpkin Bomb spell lets you spawn your own pumpkin bombs that you can then use to pumpkin jump with on any class. The Minify spell is also very buggy. Back in the day, you could use the Minify spell next to a displacement basically anywhere, and you could clip out of bounds when the spell ended. But this got patched in a rather intrusive way. Nowadays, if you're too close to a wall or ceiling when the Minify anti-spell ends, you just sort of unceremoniously drop dead on the floor for no reason. I mean, I guess it stops you going out of bounds, right? Or at least it's supposed to. The invis spell, like, you know, sucks really bad, but if you play Pyro with the hot hand, you can attack people without it decloaking you, which is completely pointless because you're not actually invisible with the invis spell because the spell's completely garbage. But like, I don't know, it's funny, maybe, I don't know. But now that's all the boring stuff. Now we get to the good stuff. The teleport spell fires a projectile that teleports you to wherever the projectile lands. This projectile can hit enemy players, which lets you do some really interesting things because you can airshot people with it. Now, I suck at TF2 too much to actually do this in a real game, but a player named Halicon did manage to hit this in a real match, which is, you know, where I stole the idea from. His frag movie's in the description, you should go check it out. But the teleport spell lets you do one other interesting thing. If you get stuck in an object, then give yourself a ton of potential energy, you can then throw your teleport spell to get unstuck at will, and you'll be launched at the same angle that your velocity was directed in. Now, this all sounds really exciting, but sadly, the teleport spell only exists on 2 maps. One of them is Hell Tower, and the other is Sandcastle, which is a De Groot Keep reskin. Sandcastle is obviously pointless, because even if you could get stuck somewhere, there's no way to give yourself speed because you don't have any primary weapons. And Hell Tower doesn't really have any stuck spots to speak of. You can use a teletrap, where you build a teleporter underneath another building like a dispenser or sentry, but there's not many spots you can do this in. But if you were really persistent, you could hit a clip with this. Now, I'm not going to do it because it sounds like it will give me a disease, but like, you can do it, it's free, I'm giving you the tech, you know? Now, the best spell, and truly the main reason I'm talking about spells in this video, is the Blast Jump spell. You have 2 charges of it, and when you cast a spell, you do a big pencil jump directly upwards, and you heal yourself a little bit. The nice thing about this spell is that when you use it, you maintain all of your momentum. So if you were already traveling horizontally at a high speed, using the spell will maintain that high speed for the entire time you're in the air, which lets you do some really exciting things. Oh yeah. This map's called Dynamite, and if you plan on doing anything fancy with the Blast Jump spell, I highly recommend you do it here. The map basically has no invisible walls anywhere, so you can fly over everything. And the only spell on this map is Blast Jump. All of the other spells are disabled, and you get the spell as a drop from enemies when they die, so you can pick them up very easily. And the map has this launch pad at spawn that lets you fly all the way across the map as any class. But if you wanted to do this on another map, you could always use pumpkin jumps. This is much easier to do with an overheal from a med. Ooh, I hit a headshot! But you can do this without it. As long as you're far away enough from the pumpkin, you'll survive the explosion at 125 HP. The only problem is if you jump crouch before shooting the pumpkin, you can't scope in while you're in the air. So to scope in after a pumpkin jump, you need to crouch walk from an elevated place before destroying the pumpkin. There's also Sandcastle, the De Groot Keep Halloween reskin. This map has this invisible wall off the side of the cliff that's meant to stop you from standing on these rocks out of bounds. But you can use this ramp as a surf ramp to gain a bunch of speed, then use the Blast Jump spell to carry all of that speed all the way across the map. Now, if you want to try and do this sort of thing on a map other than Dynamite, I do have one last piece of advice for you. It's really important, so like, listen really closely. Don't bother. Doing this for more than 5 minutes unironically took years off of my life. Almost every single Halloween map that has spells on it is evil. And not evil in the awesome Halloween spooky way, more like in the, you know, the people who made this game are going to hell in real life kind of way. The spells on Hell Tower only spawn every 2.5 minutes, and the spell you get is random. So you can sometimes get really lucky and get Blast Jump all the time, or you don't get it for 45 minutes and you lose the will to live. And there's other people running around throwing legendary spells at you. And at regular intervals, Hell Tower spawns these janky-ass skeletons to follow you around and kick you in the knees. You're just constantly fighting for your life on this map, and the clip it's just not worth it. If you want to do this, go play Dynamite. That map is actually good and isn't made by fucking Satan. The work of art you just witnessed is 100% regular TF2 gameplay. There's no mods involved. I didn't download a skin from Game Banana or anything. This is exactly what the gameplay looked like for everyone in the server. And if you too want to be a really scary skeleton, it's extremely simple to pull off. On Cough Toxic, there's these vats of acid at either side of the map. And there's a hurt trigger inside the vat so that when you fall into the acid, you die. But the mapper thought that it would be a cute idea to also have a second trigger here that turns your ragdoll into a skeleton. But there's a few problems with the way this works. First off, the damage trigger in the acid only does 300 damage. So if you can climb out of the soup fast enough before taking your next tick of damage, you'll survive. And the trigger that turns you into a skeleton will have done its job. Terrifying, I know. Damage resistance will also reduce the amount of damage the trigger does to you. The battalion's backup and the dead ringer can allow you to survive one tick of the soup's damage before dying. But if that all sounded too complicated, don't worry about it, because it actually gets way worse. Because you can become a spooky skeleton without taking a single point of damage. If you jump into the acid, dip your toes in for just a super short amount of time, and then jump out again, you won't take any damage from the hurt trigger. But all of the other triggers inside of the vat of acid will work just fine. And if you now go into third person, you'll be like a really scary guy. You'll know you've done it successfully if a big green particle effect appears and your character makes a sound as if they were set on fire. Now just make sure not to walk too far into your own spawn room, because the spawn rooms have a big trigger inside that turns you back into a normal person. These were seemingly placed there to fix this bug from last year. Now the reason this works is because of a small oversight from the mapper. The trigger that does damage to you has a 0.10 second delay set on it, whereas all of the other triggers don't have this delay. So as long as you enter and exit the soup within 0.10 seconds, you'll survive without taking a single point of damage. Pyro can dip his toes into the soup without crouching, then use the jetpack to get out of the soup before you take damage. Scout can do the same thing by double jumping, and Demo can put sticky jumper stickies into the soup, then dip his toes in and detonate the stickies to launch himself back out. Soldier can become a skeleton without taking damage, but it actually requires a little bit of skill to do. You need to walk off the ledge, then crouch super late and fire a rocket at the side of the vat just like this to get back out again. Classes like Heavy and Spy are able to survive one tick of damage from the soup, but they don't have the mobility to climb out of the soup on their own. You can swim in the acid for a sec before dying, but the ledge is too high to climb out of on your own. But if you have a friend on the opposite team, they can play Pyro and fish you out of the acid. Oh! Pootis! Fucking Pootis! Now, you might have noticed every time I become a skeleton, I'm stood there A-posing very ominously. Well, the game didn't expect you to be able to touch this trigger while still being alive. So doing this successfully completely breaks your animations. And technically, the skeletons in TF2 actually have the rig and animations of a sniper. And if you use certain taunts, like the Yeti taunt, you can actually hear sniper voice lines even when you aren't playing sniper. But I did test it, and even if you become a skeleton as sniper, your animations are still broken. So the A-posing skeleton is clearly the only way to go. Now, being an A-posing skeleton has some upsides, outside of being, you know, really, really scary. If you don't wear any team-colored cosmetics, players can't tell what team you're on, and they have a really hard time of seeing what class you are. The skeletons also have really weird interactions with sentry guns. If you hold crouch, the sentry gun is completely unable to shoot you. All of the bullets will seemingly fly over your head. The rockets it fires will still hit you, but the bullets will do 0 damage. And all the other stuff about being a skeleton is just like goofy and dumb, but this part is unironically broken. And as far as I can tell, me and my friends were the first people to discover this bug. We found this bug on the 10th of October, and I uploaded the Spooky Skeleton Frag movie to my second channel on the 16th of October. But when I went searching around for videos about the bug, I found nothing. In fact, the oldest video about the bug is a YouTube short made by LED, and this was released on the 18th of October. So unless LED knew about the bug a long time before releasing the short, we seem to be the first people to find it. And after we started using it in casual, news of the bug started spreading incredibly fast.
Yeah, I showed how to do it.
And now he's a skeleton. Now he's gonna Ferrari bomb people as fucking skeleton. Look at him. Oh, he's nuke. Oh, he had a clip. But if you knew about this bug from before the 10th of October, let us know in the comments, because I'd be really curious to hear about it. wait a minute. Go back a sec. Medic's not supposed to be able to stomp people. That's not right. How do you do that? How did you... TF2 features 2 weapons that allow players to kill people by stomping on their heads. But neither of these weapons are equipable by the medic. But despite that... How the medic can do that? How do... This bug is incredibly simple to reproduce. Step 1, heal a pyro with the quick fix. Step 2, have that pyro use the jetpack 1 time. That's it. That's the entire bug. You now have the thermal thruster stomp effect for the rest of the round. Well, assuming you don't, die or something. So now you can fly around stomping to your heart's content. Okay, that one was good. This bug is actually identical to a much more well-known bug that the Pyro can do for himself. Swap to the jetpack, then swap to a different secondary while not stood in your spawn room. Or you can use this command that disables auto-swapping loadouts in spawn. Then use the jetpack to jump into the resupply cabinet and make sure you don't touch the floor before you touch the cabinet. If you did it correctly, you will swap to your other secondary, but the sound of the jetpack will persist, and you will now have the stomp effect without the jetpack equipped. And if you find the constant jetpack noise annoying, you can use this command to turn it off. This bug is super well known by now and is a favourite of many a clip farming pyro main. And the reason it works is relatively simple. If you have the jetpack and you just fall from a higher place, you don't actually stomp people. It's not like the man treads where the effect is just permanently active. Instead, the stomp effect is only applied to you after you become airborne via the jetpack's thrust. And when you touch the ground again, the game tells your thermal thruster to remove the effect from the player. But when you launch into the air with the jetpack, but then change loadout before touching the ground, this check breaks. The game tries to tell your thermal thruster to remove the effect, but no thermal thruster is found, so the check fails and the effect remains. The quick fix version of this bug is almost identical. The game gives the medic the stomp effect, but then when they hit the ground again, the game tries to tell the medic player's thermal thruster to remove the stomp effect. But the medic doesn't have a thermal thruster, so the stomp remains. But it's not just stomping on people. You also take 75% less fall damage whilst this bug is active. So even if you have no intention of stomping on people, this is still a pretty nice thing to have. Somewhat recently, Valve patched out this bug from the game, using a fix a community member had sent to their GitHub. But there was quite a large community outcry about this patch. The stomp effect is a bug, but it's not exactly game-breaking or overpowered. The only people who even know this bug exists are the Pyro clip farmer goblins, and they use the bug to hit crazy clips that wouldn't be possible otherwise. So after enough complaining from community members who are in the know about this sort of thing, Valve re-added the bug back into the game. So this is still possible to pull off in TF2, at least at the time of this video releasing. But there is a small chance that Valve decides to pull the plug on this bug a second time. This bug does come with a downside though. A downside that can be really, really detrimental. I got I was about to say random crit. It's a mini crit because I have the stomp. This bug causes the game to think that you are constantly airborne from a blast jump, even when you're stood on the ground, which means the direct hit and reserve shooter will permanently mini crit you no matter what, which can cause some interesting problems.
What the fuck?
Now, honestly, calling this tech feels like a huge stretch, to be honest. It's just too funny to not put in a video. I just have to talk about it. So the most common piece of movement tech in TF2 is rocket jumping, damaging yourself to launch yourself through the air. There's also surfing, using enemy damage to propel yourself through the air. But what if instead of surfing the damage of a guy who's trying to kill you, instead you surf the damage of a guy who is intentionally trying to launch you around? Walk off like that and then you yeah.
Oh.
This is like the dumbest thing I've done in TF2, but it's really funny, and I would recommend trying it. There's a few good ways to do this. A really cool one is with spots like this. These rocks slope together in such a way where if I sit in this gap just right, I'm not actually touching the floor. So the game thinks I'm airborne even though I'm clearly not. It's like when you hover on a sloped surface like this, except I'm completely stationary. If you get into a spot like this, then shoot yourself with the rocket jumper, you can market guard on people infinitely without actually moving anywhere. Get an enemy dead ringer spy to stand on your head and you can fling them into the sky. There's this spot on Badwater, and there's also this spot here on Upward. If you hold a movement key into the wall, you can hover on this ledge forever. But my favorite way to do this is with the Neon Annihilator. This melee weapon crits people who are wet. So if there's a pool of water on the map, you can use the Neon Annihilator to fling people into space. The Pyro's jetpack is also incredibly useful for this. Wearing this item makes you take 50% increased knockback. So hitting this guy without the jetpack sends him this far, but hitting him with the jetpack sends him this far. So at first, we just use this to launch people super high onto 2-fort battlements.
It's the fly into torpedo combo.
But then we thought, wouldn't it be funny if rather than launching someone into the sky, instead you launched them through the water like a torpedo, just directly into a guy's face. And on my very first attempt, I had something rather tragic happen. Now. That's unedited footage, by the way. Like, my game just decided to do that. But eventually, we got this one. He lived. Okay, it's fine. He didn't. It was alright. It was alright. But after a while, we realized 2-fort might not be a very big map, but you can still do this exact same thing on 2-fort, which is how I invented the brand new Pyro subclass, the Five Nights at Freddy's Pyro. I've talked about getting stuck in TF2 like 7 trillion times by now, but my stuck launch addiction just can't be satiated, apparently, so we're gonna have to talk about it just one more time, just one more. So have you ever noticed that sometimes when you play Barn Blitz and you walk out of blue spawn, you sort of get stuck in the floor for a second as you leave the spawn door? Or have you ever walked over this staircase on Moss Rock and gotten stuck for just a moment? Well, these are what we like to call potholes, named after every single road in the entirety of Britain. They're caused by tiny gaps in displacements, the tool mappers use to make natural looking geometry, or tiny gaps in clip brushes, the invisible walls that mappers can place into their maps. So check this spot out on Barn Blitz. If you zoom in real close to the floor, you'll notice that where the wooden floor meets the snowy displacement, there's a tiny gap here. This gap is literally a hole in the map, and you can see directly through it onto the other side. On maps with bright skyboxes, these are very easy to spot, because the bright blue sky will literally shine through the hole in the floor. When you walk over these gaps in just the right way, part of your bounding box goes underneath the floor and gets stuck for a second. This gap is incredibly tiny, but it is there. There's also this evil messed up pothole on Thunder Mountain right here. This one's strange because it's not caused by a hole in the map, but instead by a displacement being too tall. If I look at this beam from this side, you can see that it bends downwards in the middle. But if you look at it from the other side, there's this flat part that sticks up right here. This flat part is a displacement. So when you walk into this displacement from the side it's invisible on, you can just walk directly inside of it and get stuck in it. For the most part, potholes just sort of get you stuck briefly before the game kicks you out of the floor and lets you keep moving. But there is one pothole that's super insane that shows up right here on Snowy Coast. If you check where the displacement meets the wooden floor just next to the first point, you can see a small gap in the displacement. If you walk up to this crate and put your crosshair right in the middle of this beam, then turn to face the displacement and aim roughly around here, you can crouch walk forward into this pothole and you fall directly into the floor. And if you do it right, you will get permanently stuck in this spot, unable to move until you die. I'm not 100% sure why this pothole gets you full stuck when most others don't, but once you're full stuck, you can do a whole bunch of funny things. Now this one pothole is super insane for some reason, but these other potholes can also be used in incredible ways. See, potholes are kind of like the holy grail of stuck launches, because the downside of every other stuck launch is that one player is stuck in the wall or floor, unable to move or do anything. They just serve as a vehicle to launch the other guy into space. But potholes allow the stuck player to get unstuck whenever they want, and it allows you to launch both players from the stuck launch at the same time. And it's very easy. All you have to do is stand on the stuck guy's head. If I crouch walk all over this pothole, I will repeatedly get stuck and then unstuck over and over again. But if I crouch walk over it while someone is stood on me, I will get stuck and stay stuck until that player gets off my head. And shortly after they're launched, I will follow them up there with the velocity I gave myself. So you can fling two players into space over and over again as many times as you want. The way this works is actually really stupid. When you get stuck in an object, the game does some checks to see if nudging you in a certain direction would get you unstuck. First, it checks if it should nudge you downwards slightly, then up, then left, then right, then it continues with a bunch of different possible directions. If you get stuck in a pothole the normal way, the way to get you unstuck is by nudging you upwards, to move your bounding box up from inside the ground. But when there's a player stood on your head, the game checks above you and sees that player. And since they're an obstacle that the game doesn't want you to get stuck inside of, the game refuses to nudge you upwards in that direction. And then it keeps doing the rest of the stuck checks, all of which don't get you unstuck from the floor. So you stay stuck there for as long as the guy is stood on your head. So you can use this to your advantage to hit some really hilarious clips.
This guy's just like...
They can see me. They can see me.
Yeah.
That guy does not give a fuck.
Right.
There's people there.
Yeah, I'm going, I guess. One of these is me.
Oh!
Potholes are surprisingly common, but they're also really hard to go out and find for yourself, because the gaps can be so small that they're almost completely invisible to the naked eye. And sometimes they literally are invisible to the naked eye. But when you find one, you can do some really cool things with it. Or it'll, you know, get you stuck in the floor while you're trying to run from a pyro, and then you'll just die because this game is just completely dog shit. When I shoot the detonator at myself, I go about this far. But when an enemy shoots a flare at me, and I reflect it right as they detonate it, I go this far. Why it do that? Why is that what it... Shunic has a great explanation of why this works in this video here. But if you wanted a way worse explanation of the exact same thing, then watch this, right? So when you fire a detonator, the detonator remembers that it fired the flare, right? And then when you press mouse 2, the flare explodes and the detonator forgets about the flare that just blew up. But then when you reflect a detonator flare, the guy that fired it is the guy that can mouse 2 to blow it up and not you, right? So the flare belongs to me because I reflected it, but he is the guy who detonates it. So when he presses mouse 2, the flare blows up, but the flare doesn't delete itself properly because I own the flare, but the game thinks he owns the flare, but I own the flare. So instead of deleting itself after firing, it instead blows up continuously once every frame for 0.015 seconds. Did you get all that? Did you understand that? No, of course you didn't. Go watch the Shunic video. He's like way better at this. Just go watch his. This bug is very infamous among Highlander pyro mains. Not because of any cool tech or anything, but because sometimes it just causes them to spontaneously combust and die. But if you're feeling adventurous, you can use this bug to your advantage to hit some pretty nasty clips.
I'm going for the ruby drill.
That one wasn't bad.
What?
Boom. Oh!
Good game show. Well, not
It's
game
a
show, like
movie.
film. Sorry, film. Film
Okay,
of like
that
a game show.
That was the clip. I got the clip.
Oh, what's that on?
I sat on this high tower server doing this for like 2.5 hours and I didn't get bored for even a single second. Now this bug has some really crazy inconsistency to it. Sometimes the flare detonates just a few times and gives you a smaller amount of knockback. And sometimes it detonates so many times that you just instantly explode.
Oh my god.
I'm dead. The reason it has this variance is that this bug happens over the course of one in-game tick. There are 66 ticks in a second, so one tick is 0.015 seconds. The flare detonates constantly inside of one tick before the game automatically deletes the flare. If you happen to reflect the flare later in the tick, then it only has a short amount of time to explode before the next tick occurs and the flare disappears. But if you happen to reflect it early in the tick, it will detonate a massive number of times and will instantly vaporize you. With an overheal from a med, it's incredibly unlikely that you'll actually die, so what will happen instead is you just get maxfelled directly to the skybox like a speeding bullet. Now, all of these were set up by my friend. I was being fed the detonator flares to jump with. But if you're really lucky and the stars align, you can do this completely organically against a player who shoots the detonator at you. Sadly, I'm not talented enough to do that though. Like someone else will have to do that for me because I really don't, I'm not good enough at the game. For this one, I want to play a little game with my audience, because this last tech I want to show you has been hiding in plain sight this entire time. I have already used this tech for many of the clips that you've seen in this video, and it showed up numerous times in the intro segment of the video too. Did you spot it? Did you notice it staring you in the face? It's this tiny, insignificant, pointless particle effect staring you in the face the entire time. The final tech is called Taunt Cancelling, and despite having almost no practical use cases, despite being nearly completely and utterly pointless, it has rapidly become one of my favorite techs in the entire game. But first, what is a taunt cancel? Simply, a taunt cancel is when you cancel a taunt's animation early in some way. The most common way is to lose your footing on the ground beneath you. Like, watch this example. If I taunt on this player's head and then they walk out from under me, my taunt will end early. If the player dies while you're on their head, the same thing will happen. But there's a couple of other ways that you can achieve a similar effect. The payload cart can push you into a wall that makes you fall off. You can stand on an engineer's building as they destroy it. There's also what's called a push trigger. If a mapper doesn't want you to be able to stand on a piece of scenery like a tree or a sign, the mapper will put a trigger on it that stops you from standing there. If you taunt right as you touch this surface, you will begin taunting, then the push trigger will push you off the surface, ending the taunt early. There's also these conveyor belts on Koth Boardwalk. These conveyor belts are also push triggers, so they work in the same way. Now, the one and only practical use for taunt cancelling, the big elephant in the room, is the Phlogistinator. Usually, that 10-second duration is partially eaten up by your taunt. But with taunt cancelling, you can cancel this animation to get extra duration on your flog crits. The taunt also makes you invulnerable for its duration. But even if the taunt ends early, the invulnerability remains. The most powerful way to do this is easily with a friendly engineer. Have them build you a teleporter, then taunt on top of it as they destroy it. This is insanely easy to do and is unironically overpowered. It's kind of disgusting. Push triggers are also just insanely good for this. And you can also just do it by jumping onto people's heads. You can even use stuck launches to do this. Jump onto the stuck player's head and hold mouse 2. This will make you taunt the very tick you land on their head, only to be instantly launched into the sky while completely invulnerable. The flog is the one and only practical use case for taunt cancelling. But there's a whole bunch of other things you can do with taunt cancelling that are, in my opinion, way cooler, because their one and only purpose is for style points. Certain taunts have these gaudy looking particle effects that follow them around, the Shred Alert being the gaudiest of them all. These particle effects play out in their entirety no matter what happens. So if you're using some sick TF2 tech to launch yourself into the sky to try and hit a clip, you can use taunt cancelling to add some extra flair to all of your kills. The way you do this is simple in concept, but pretty tricky to do in practice. You need to land on the enemy's head, hold crouch, swing your melee at them, and then press your taunt button immediately afterwards. When you swing your melee in TF2, there's a delay between you pressing left click and your melee actually doing damage. This delay is exactly 0.2 seconds. But when you press M1, the 0.2 second timer can only be interrupted by you dying. So if you press M1, then immediately taunt, your melee will still come out uninterrupted and will still deal damage. So if you crouch and melee, then immediately taunt, your melee will hit the player that you're standing on, leaving only this ridiculous looking particle effect behind. Now you might be wondering, how does this work with Spy? Spy's melee weapon swings instantly the moment you press left click. It does not have the same delay that all of the other melee weapons have. But despite the melee coming out instantly, you can still taunt cancel with Spy's melee. The timing is just way more precise. This also means that you can taunt cancel with hit scan weapons. You can get on top of someone's head with a shotgun and taunt cancel with it just like a spy knife. Now the downside of this is that it can look incredibly stupid when it goes wrong.
Is it?
He's
Can you
alive.
put your stream back on, by the way?
That was sick. I'm going now.
Yeah, it looks good now.
That's insane. What? That was crazy. There's also this taunt called the Yeti Smash. This taunt has unique jank that only works with this taunt. For some reason, this taunt is incredibly sensitive to being cancelled. Taking any damage whatsoever cancels the taunt instantly, even if 0 knockback was dealt to you. You can also cancel the taunt yourself by shooting a rocket jumper rocket right before you taunt. This works with no other taunt in the game, only the Yeti. You can even B-hop cancel the Yeti. Like, you just jump and taunt at the exact same time and the taunt just ends. This is tick perfect, by the way. This game's so stupid, man. What am I even talking about? The f***? And Yeti cancelling, much like taunt cancelling with the Shred Alert, is completely and utterly pointless. But somehow, it being pointless just makes it that much cooler. It's like the peak of TF2 tech knowledge, using some evil forbidden TF2 tech that nobody knows about for no other reason than to style on the guy you just killed, in a way that he doesn't even notice. First, I'm going to show you the craziest scout frag movie you've ever seen. And then, I'm going to show you exactly how all of it was done. Let's get to it.
Yeah, that's what I would have did. That's the technique. There's nothing he can do about it. He's not even looking.
our journey to hitting the freakiest Scout clips you've ever seen had humble beginnings. It all started in this side tunnel on PL Upward. There's a spot in this corner here where you can get stuck inside the wall. Crouch walk into the wall right around here, then let go of crouch and wiggle into the wall. If you do it right, you will stand up and get stuck in the wall. Once you get stuck in TF2, you can do some wonderful things. I found this spot a really long time ago, but I never actually used it for anything, for quite an obvious reason. There's tons of places to get stuck on tons of maps, and they all have massive wide open space around them so that you can fling people in whatever direction they want to go in. But this spot is as claustrophobic as it gets. There's only one real way you could launch a guy out of this room, which really limits the usefulness of the spot. But more importantly, actually managing to stand on the stuck guy's head is really hard because of how low the ceiling is. Like, this is all the space you have to stand on their head while they're stuck. And worst of all, while the stuck player has a ton of potential energy, when you land on their head, the game will try and kick you off of them immediately. And with only this tiny amount of space to stand on, this makes getting onto the stuck guy's head really difficult. But we did find a few ways to do this consistently. Engineer can do it if he builds a dispenser right around here and then C-tap jumps onto the guy's head. And we did try and use this as Engineer, but like... That's awesome. It's just the most mid clip of all time. There's also the problem of where you're actually going to go after you get launched. Strafing to the right is barely possible, but this massive thing here really gets in the way. And strafing to the left is possible, but you have to slow down massively to do it, which makes the clip mid as hell. But this is where Scout comes in. Scout solves all of these problems. Scout can easily double jump onto the stuck player's head. Scout also has the fastest move speed in the game, meaning that he is much more easily able to strafe at higher speeds. Because if you didn't know, your strafe speed is directly tied to your character's move speed, meaning faster classes can literally turn quicker in the air than slower ones. And most importantly of all is the force of nature. If you can gain a ton of speed, then the force of nature allows you to carry that speed over incredible distances. And it's as easy as looking down and pressing mouse 1. So with all that in mind, this spot finally became not just useful, but actually one of the best spots in the game. There's no other known stuck spots on Upward. This is the only one. So finally finding a use for it on one of the most popular maps in the game is a godsend. And this spot allowed me to hit one of my favorite clips of the entire video. Okay, that was good. That one was really good. That one was fucking sick. This was the first Scout clip I hit, and it created some brainwaves in my head. You know, it really got the gears turning in there. Because there's lots of Scout frag movies out there. Sixes players have been making them for like a decade and a half. But Scout clips have always just been so unbelievably boring. It's just a guy walking around and clicking on people. And he's clicking on people really accurately and doing tons of damage, but he's still just walking around clicking on people. Playing Scout is super fun, but watching him is like watching paint dry. But what if you could make a Scout frag movie that was more out of the box, more akin to the Spy and Pyro frag movies of people hitting completely ridiculous clips? Turns out it is possible, and the Force of Nature really does unlock some insane potential for clip farming. If you manage to get a burst of speed before using the Force of Nature, then your Force of Nature can let you fly across the entire map, and can give you a massive amount of control over the direction you're launched in. So armed with this new knowledge, we went looking for other stuck launch spots that would be really good for sending a Scout to space. And we immediately landed on this spot here on CP Moss Rock.
Before, that's why.
If you jump onto... Oh! If you stand on this rock here, you can uncrouch into this displacement in the exact same way you did on the upward side tunnel. Now, we want to launch in this direction, because there's a massive amount of space over there to do basically whatever we want with. But if we get a soldier stuck here, he has nothing to shoot off of to give himself velocity in this direction. Not to mention that if you just sat here stuck, you'd probably just, you know, get shot in the face and die. So the workaround for that is to have the stuck guy play as spy. They get stuck in this rock, and then they go invisible. invisible. Then a Pyro from the other team walks out of spawn and air blasts that guy 1 billion times. And he can sit there invisible permanently with the cloak and dagger so that nobody knows he's there. The cloak and dagger bugs out really insanely hard when you're stuck with a bunch of speed, with your first person view model constantly looking like you're visible, but enemy players still can't see you. Now, the first thing we did here wasn't actually launching a scout. Instead, it was, bullying random children in casual.
He's trying again, dude. He loves it.
We got a spy stuck here. Then we built a teleporter right next to this edge, facing the spy, so that when someone takes the teleporter and holds W, they get, you know.
Coming through. Noob coming through.
He'd random crit me with the skull cutter. Oh my god, of course.
But after we got bored of cyberbullying random 10-year-olds, we got back to work. At first, we used this launch for Pyro, sending him all the way around this building, hitting this ramp slide here, then absolutely annihilating a guy on the other side of the map. But believe it or not, Scout is even more insane than that, because the force of nature allows him not to just land on people out in the open over here, but to actually fly through this corridor onto last. I spent literally hours trying variations of this, and I could barely make it into last. But if you look backwards and down to carry more speed and gain less height, we found out that you can travel from Blue's first spawn all the way into Red's last spawn, all in the space of about 5 seconds. This is by far my favorite clip in the video. It has so many moving parts and took so much labbing to figure out. Honestly, I'm very curious as to what you guys think. So let me know in the comments what your favorite clip was. But we're not actually done with Moss Rock yet, because Moss Rock also has a train.
There was like 3 people just standing in the corner.
Okay. You can jump on top of the train, then run along with it to gain a bunch of speed, then jump off and use the force of nature to carry that speed towards people. Now, there's one last stuck spot I want to show you for this video, and it's on Koth Megaton. Now, Megaton is a really wide open map, so we were here originally to try and launch a Pyro really far across the map. But then, we were goofing around with these trees that you can get caught behind, and, well, I'm just going to show you the clip, alright? Just see for yourself.
I'm stuck in the tree.
What? What?
How'd that happen?
I'm stuck. I'm literally stuck. What?
Oh no! Oh no! don't tell me I can. Oh.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh,
how did I? What is this fucking evil voodoo magic? I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm stuck.
No.
Does this work with other things?
Oh no. Oh good heavens. Oh but this is like the blessed stuck spot. This is a jug brought down from upon high like Moses with those stone tablets. Turns out the Pyro aggressively stomping on my head wasn't actually important. You can just crouch walk into this fence post and get stuck. The Pyro stepping on me was just God's method of showing us his divine knowledge of TF2 jank. The reason you get stuck here is very silly. The fence post itself has no collision, but this rope does have collision, and the mapper made the rope out of Displacement, the same mapping tool that lets you get stuck in a whole bunch of other places. And this only works on blue side. Red side's fence posts are completely different. The strat here is to get a blue engineer stuck and have him build a dispenser next to himself, then have a red Pyro come along and air blast him for speed. Since if you jump on a guy's head while they're stuck with potential energy, you always get launched super high with no real distance. But if you walk off smoothly onto their head without falling from any height, then jump off of them, you can be sent in any direction you want. So the dispenser is placed to be roughly level with the NG, so you can walk off of it onto his head and then jump off. So we've already had a stuck launch that allows us to travel from one side of the map to the other. So what if a stuck launch could allow me to go from one side of the map to the other and then back again?
I can't find anyone.
What's the call out?
I wish I had a map right now.
Oh my god, that one was crazy. That one was so good. Now, stock launches aren't the only way to give yourself a bunch of speed on Scout. They're definitely the most insane way to do it, but it involves another person, so it's not something you can exactly do yourself. But there are a lot of other ways to do this. Let's start with a simple one. Sentry Surfing. Oh my god, I just got rolled. If an engineer builds a sentry gun in a spot where you can easily get in front of it or on top of it, you can use the gun shooting you to get launched very high into the sky. On other classes, this is pretty simple to do, but on Scout, this can be pretty tricky, because if you're not careful, you sort of just die. But if a sentry is placed in just the right spot, you can surf it for a ton of speed, but strafe out of it before it kills you, which is how I got these clips.
Yeah.
Was.
Oh, I got another clip. Now let's talk about the loadout, because I literally never changed it. We've already talked about the Force of Nature, but why do I constantly use the Cleaver and the Boston Basher? The Cleaver is just way too good for hitting a clip. It lets you airshot people, and it does a ton of damage, making it more likely that the person you land on actually dies. And the melee is also very important. The Boston Basher never leaves the melee slot, because this weapon gives you movement options that are incredibly useful for, you know, playing like a freak. If you swing the Boston Basher and don't hit anything, you hit yourself. If you time a crouch jump as the Boston Basher hits you, you can jump incredibly high. And with Scout's double jump, you can do this twice to gain a massive amount of height. This does a lot of self-damage though. Just one single Boston Basher swing does 58 self-damage, so you definitely want to use this sparingly. But it can be used to do a lot of crazy things. The simplest thing you can do is stand on a higher place, Boston Basher jump for a bunch of height, then fall and use the Force of Nature to send you flying towards someone. When you fall from a height and aim backwards and down at an angle like this, all of your falling speed gets converted into forward speed, and the Boston Basher jumps allow you to do this in a ton of places. But there's way more to this weapon than meets the eye, because with a little creativity, this extra jump height can be used to some insane effect. The idea for this one was inspired by a clip I got sent by Igor. You know, the guy who made this completely crazy frag movie? Yeah, that guy. He sent this clip in my Discord, and I thought it was just so creative. And it really got me thinking. Launch a guy up in the air, then Boston Basher jump up to him and melee him out of the sky. Sounds easy, right? Well, not so much. See, if you're a class like Pyro, you can pop people up into the air and keep them there, basically for free. You look down and air blast and the guy gets popped up into the air. Then you just mouse to him up in the air until you run out of ammo. But Scout can't really do this. If you're on level ground with the person you shoot with the Force of Nature, they always go flying away from you, no matter how you aim your shot. So if you want to launch someone upwards, you need to be below them to make this work, which makes even attempting a clip like this in a real game incredibly situational. I got a couple of kills with this where the guy wasn't really very high off the ground, and it's kinda cool, but it's pretty mid compared to nuking someone out of the sky. I also got some attempts where the guy in the air managed to get away from me before I could reach him. There's also this attempt, which would have been really nice if I'd actually, you know, hit the cleaver at the end. But you know what they say, 90% of gamblers quit before hitting it big, right? So I just kept gambling, and eventually there's also this other aerial I got that is just as cool. I airshot cleaver the guy jumping, and then my Pyro teammate keeps him in the air as I jump up to him and melee him to death. The Boston Basher is also nice, believe it or not, on Passtime maps. Yeah, Passtime, remember that game mode? No, of course you don't. No one does. But the Passtime maps have these launch pads everywhere that send you flying, but at relatively low angles. But with the Boston Basher, you can spam melee yourself to carry all of that speed all the way across the map. I sat and did this for like 5 hours straight one day, and I hit a bunch of clips, a few of which you would have seen in the frag movie at the start. This Edgebug one is just pure unadulterated luck. I wasn't aiming for the Edgebug or anything, I just, you know, bless up and then hit the launch pad and God does the rest of the work. There's also these two Boston Basher clips on Swiftwater that look pretty unassuming to the untrained eye. It just looks like the height trick we talked about earlier, where you can turn your height into speed. But no, there's actually crazy tech here that you just don't know about yet. The mapper that made Swiftwater didn't want you to be able to stand on top of these trees, so he put what's called a push trigger on the top of the tree. A big box placed there by the mapper that pushes you in one direction. Now, other maps have push triggers to stop you standing in places too, and usually those push triggers are just tiny little boxes to stop you standing on whatever ledge the box is placed on. But for some reason, the push triggers on Swiftwater are absolutely massive. So in these two clips, I Boston Basher jump into the push trigger at the top of the tree, then the trigger pushes me to give me a bit of extra speed in that direction, which I then use to strafe into the guy I want to kill. Now, these push triggers always push you in the same direction, so you have to jump into it from this side. If you jump into it from any other angle, you lose speed instead of gaining it. So you have to jump into the trigger in this direction for these trees on third, and in this direction for the trees on first. And Swiftwater even has a super secret invisible push trigger that's over here just floating in the middle of nowhere. On older versions of Swiftwater, there used to be a tree here, but on the newer versions, the trees are removed, but the mapper forgot to remove the push trigger, so that still remains. So you can just jump across the cart tracks at this spot and it sends you flying towards the enemy team. It's great. This is useful on quite a few classes outside of Scout too. Pyro can jetpack into them to get more speed than the jetpack is normally meant to give you. And Soldier can do some freaky strafes to hit multiple push triggers at once. Swiftwater has the most push triggers that you can use, but there's also one really funny one on Frontier. Right down here, there's a push trigger to stop you standing on this slope, and it pushes you off with a massive amount of speed. If you fire the Force of Nature just after you hit the second push trigger, you can give yourself a ton of height back up to the top of the map. I learned about this one from a frag movie made by Cryo. You should go check it out, it's in the description. Now there's one last thing the Boston Basher can do, and this is by far the most difficult thing to pull off in a real game, and that is the Boston Basher Surf. Time a Boston Basher jump with somebody shooting an explosive at you, and you will go absolutely flying. These are super hard to go for, mostly because the Scout doesn't have enough health to do it. If you're being perma-beamed by a medic, you can go for this quite a lot, but if you're not being healed, this doesn't come up very often. And the two Boston Basher Surf clips in this video are the clips that took by far the longest to hit. If you're not being healed, the strat to go for this is to look for Demo's pipes. As they're rolling around on the floor, you can try and time your Boston Basher jump with the roller exploding, and you will go flying into the sky, and you don't take that much damage for it. But before we look at successful clips, let's look at some of the insanely tragic clips that I missed. Oh! But wait, there's no one anywhere.
Scary bomb from sky.
It was a crit. Oh my god, it's huge. No!
Huge.
I'm so fucking... But these failed attempts just made the successful ones that much sweeter. You can also do this with the Force of Nature too, like I do in this clip. Force of Nature jump right as the soldier shoots me to fly up to him super fast. But this is a lot less useful than doing it with the Boston Basher, since you want your Force of Nature to still be active mid-air so that you can use it to fly towards someone. So now let's look at the miscellaneous clips. There's two clips in the video that are there to represent something slightly unexpected. Cyberbullying. They're about cyberbullying. Scout with 2 bleed weapons is just incredibly evil. You can put 2 bleeds on a light class and then just stand there and watch them die. If you crit with the melee, you can even do that to soldiers, which is what happens to this poor guy. And there's also the final clip, where we were waiting for our casual to pop and there was only 3 people in our server. So we just like cyberbullied this one random guy until he decided to leave. Now, the last unexplained clip is this one, but like, do I need to explain it to you? Surely I don't. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is the one clip that I didn't hit, and that's the Runboost clip. If you stand on someone's head while they're walking, you can walk with them and jump off to get a speed boost. This is used super frequently in Counter-Strike movement videos, but isn't really something you see too often in TF2. But you could totally use a run boost with the Force of Nature to fly towards someone. But this is incredibly difficult to do. I got one meager attempt at this after over 100 hours of trying to farm for scout clips. It is the saddest excuse for an attempt I've ever seen. I can barely look at it any longer, honestly. Get it off my screen, please. Get it off. Get it off. But as of right now, this clip remains unhit. If any of you guys want to go and try it out, be my guest. If you do manage it, post it in my Discord server, because I'd love to see it. Now, to end my mega video about TF2 tech, I'm going to give you a massive clip dump of all of the clips that didn't quite make it into the main video. And I hope you enjoy. Oh my god! That guy got fucking owned and he quit, he left the game.
Watch out, Pootis, there's a gun. No, what? How? You've tamed them.
That's just inside, that's just, I don't know. I just have a way with people, you know? Look at him.
Yeah.
What's he up to, mate? What are you up to?
He's on like all the drugs.
What's he up to?
You look at the list of the drugs in Wikipedia.
Later, only after the first ramp.
Because then I'm too slow. Oh! Yeah.
Yes!
You don't want a jetpack instantly. Because you want to get some distance towards this so you can go really high. Oh, that's so cool! That's so cool. I can't even. Oh my.
You
do.
No, you really do.
No, but like I was thinking I could just get height off of like my own strafe rather than off of Layla's, you know.
Yeah, but there's like no air acceleration.
It's so much more.
Perfect! Yes! Oh. Okay, bro. You like switch to Gamer and then lock in.
I'm right.
You wrecked another Spencer.
Swag like that. You might need to go build him a telly.
What if I...
Those stairs.
I have a... Can you put down...
This shit might be dead.
Oh my god.
Holy
Don't beef the strafe. Oh!
Oh no.
That's a terrible bundle, by the way.
Yeah, the angle I have is... No!
Chimichangas. He will do anything but play the game.
Oh, he's gone. That was like a magic trick. It's like a magic trick.
It's gotta be.
Oh my. Oh.
Help!
Hardcore.
And he's sniper Equalizer.
Oh yeah.
I wanna watch that shit.
Well, maybe if I stand like. I can't taunt! If I uncrouch, look at my screen. This is my uncrouched POV.
Is there a guy on you?
Oh, there is. There's a guy on me. That's why.
Off him and then me.
Yo, so watch this. I'm gonna B-hop.
Holy.
I fell.
Bullings. That's so sick. If you're ever offline on Discord, you're gay.
Yeah.
This is the one.
Yo.
He wants to.
You're president.
Oh!
Basically, I need to figure out like how I'm gonna handle like a specific like API request, like a specific request.
Oh my god, sorry.
fuck?
The hell?
He's ascended.
How is he sliding? He's floating.
And he's no longer. He broke out. He snapped out of it.
What the fuck am I? Huh? How?
You're a fucking beast.
Hold. I need to
Oh,
cut the
that's
sentry
why,
there.
right?
Oh shit.
Oh, you're up there.
You're a pedo.
Oh, Swag's fucking joking that shit. Look. There you go. Med drops. It's as easy as that. New boned. Don't push me! I was fixing my hair. Push me off a cliff.
We're like we're 4 of 6 people. Sorry, 4
I'm
or 5
stuck
people on
in
the
the
team.
ceiling.
So like,
Help! This isn't even what I was trying to do. I'm just
oh wait,
stuck.
this one, yeah.
Help! The whole squad's stuck in the fucking thing. Whole server stuck in the wall.
You, Alice.
I killed a guy on the way past, and then he typed, "Damn." Going.
He's gone. Non-verbal.
Spy behind you on hill, like, doesn't really matter.
He's dead.
Okay, he's pissed.
Swag's having fun. It's like, he's enjoying himself, bless him. Anything to be stimulated, you know?
Sorry, the voices are...
The
voices are strong today. The voices are so strong
bad.
today.
You're so shit.
The voices are so strong today.
You're trying again. Boom.
Free.
That was kind of shit on my part.
Oh! I got hit by it. Oh, he doesn't even die! Bro!
Can you do your best Sentry Down engineer impression?
Sentry down!
That was actually pretty good. You should clip that.
Day in game, even though.
Oh my god! I'm cratering. Jesus!
Sounds dumb, but I gotta find it.
Oh,
Very full out. I think it might be. It's choke.
Can you arrow? I'm really weak. I don't.
He's on
our side! He's on our side! He's on our. Boom! We'll look up. Pootis! Pootis at me!
I can switch.
Yippee! I love Pyro! Yippee! 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 This class is so hard.
I think they should kill you over a rock.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I need to clip that. Hi guys, H2 here. So the reason this clip's funny is because I actually hit my caber on the rocket, and then the rocket ate my caber, so I don't have a caber, and it broke my caber. So that's a funny clip because that doesn't happen very often because I hit the guy's rocket.
Fleet brush.
You use me as a stepping stone to get to D-Lock, and then I'll shoot you. Oh! Oh! Surely. Oh!
Yeah.
Oh!
The most fun you can have online.
How you move so fast?
Well, you got another thumbnail now.
How you move so fast? I'm screen. Yeah, it's a thumbnail.
And walk out the other one. Like it's locked off.
Well, you can't.
You know the door that pushes you, makes you jump? Remember that?
Door that makes you jump.
The door that makes you jump. The beach that,
The beach that makes you old.
I like.
Four.
There might be.
Hit by a flame. Yeah.
Okay, that one was good. That one. Oh yeah. Ah. Shit! He doesn't even know! That was great! This Pootis is like in his own fucking world.
Bye, suka blech, bye.
Send me like straight at him, please.
Yeah, what's this?
Oh. What?
What the fuck, Pootis?
Chat. He's going in chat. No, vape chat. Oh.
He died! He died!
Welcome.
Airshot! Pootis airshot! The Avengers are chasing me. I need to
run.
Dead by Daylight.
Olay.
It's so gorgeous.
It is so gorgeous.
Life is so gorgeous when you are think about it.
That looks good. Or if I didn't have, I'm gonna switch to Sergeant.
Edgebug!
Boom.
Edgebug twice in a row! Oh my fucking...
Yeah.
What a way to get your kill stolen. You know the videos of the chickens? You know when you like grab a chicken and you move his body around, his head stays in the same place? It's like the opposite. Oh, it's a nuke. Oh, it's a nuke!
Going.
I just airshot someone. Do it to him anyway.
How do I? Oh, no.
There's a second sniper there.
I've tried. I swear. Every single time I try to do it, that exact thing happens.
I'm gonna cry her. Oh, no, I'm not. Fine. Bro.
He got 3 achievements.
Spooky.
Oh my god, the triple Pootis is scarier than any skeleton. Boing! And I'm out. Yes.
Give me it. Oh, I missed.
I got fucking crit airshot. That's insane. What? What? What?
Yeah.
What? Mate, put him in.
Do not go in the teleport. They never expect the second skeleton.
I don't know how he does it.
Dude, how does he have time to do that all that?
Yeah, but can't you just like...
That's so fucked. That's so funny. Hit it. Oh my god! Oh, I'm like I'm fucking particle accelerator.
Oh, they're keeping me overtime at the bone factory.
The bone zone. The bone zone.
They're really working me to the bone out here, you know what I'm saying? They're really working me to the bone.
I'm going bad.
You could just pill the
You
telly
could
in the grog.
You could pill the telly in the grog.
You can pill the... Imagine you respawn. What do?
No, you telly a sniper down there and he just like... he clicks on people and then... he just looks down and you're... he's fucking gone. Wait, you look like you're snorkeling. I look up. Like...
What the fuck is going on? What?
We're waiting for a
What
pib.
is happening?
We're trying to pib.
You have 4. Why aren't you pibbing?
I feel like playing.
Lauren hates fun, so...
What?
Oh, I just deleted you. My bad. I meant to entity remove like
You're gone. You're just gone.
you need to retry to the server.
You just said I deleted you like it was no fucking biggie.
Stem still was like.
I just deleted you. No, I just deleted
Don't
you.
delete me. Oh, my game crashed. You deleted me.
You can just retry, can't you?
My whole game crashed.
Okay.
You
literally removed TF2.
You deleted that guy.
Well, my bad, I guess. My bad, I guess.
Thanks for watching.